Welcome everyone to the Town Commission for Ocean Ridge meeting, May meeting. Tracy, please call the roll.
Commissioner Askov,
Present.
Vice Mayor Bonfiglio,
Here.
Commissioner Cos,
Here.
Commissioner Magruder,
Here.
and Mayor Pugh.
Here. Okay, let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. Okay. We have any additions, deletions, or modifications to the agenda?
Yes, I do. I attended the P&Z meeting the other day, and they expressed an interest to have a joint workshop with the town commission at some point in time in the future to discuss primarily a lot of the issues that are on the agenda for tonight, and some other things.
Do you want to add that to number 9?
Yeah, okay, we could do that to number 9.
And then we can discuss it.
Okay.
P&Z and commission. All right. Any other additions or deletions? All right, seeing none, anyone want to approve the agenda?
I move that we approve the agenda.
Second.
Motion is second, any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, public comment. Anything that comes to your mind that's not on the agenda, come on up. Ted?
Ted Rotota, 4 Hudson Avenue. Two quick things. Late this afternoon, I emailed 2 pictures to Tracy. She was kind enough, I think, to circulate them to all of you. They're pictures of, we've all dealt with independent contractors, I'm sure by now, but this is the alleyway that's north of Hudson, south of East Ocean. And the photos are from the property, behind the property north of number 10 on Hudson Avenue, 10, 12, and 14. And I was walking through the alley the other night with my family. We do that sometimes to go to Banana Boat, and I was really discouraged to see how sloppy the work is. And even worse than that is the cable laying exposed on the ground, which is what the other photo is. Further to the east in that alleyway, as I was walking over tonight, there's actually one of the cables that I can reach like this hanging down. I don't know if there's anything we can do about it or you can do about it, but we certainly need to be aware of it. A, from a liability perspective, someone could easily trip over exposed cable. Whether it's low voltage or high voltage, doesn't matter, it's still exposed. But maybe we can get some form of surveillance on these guys after they do these installations, because they're independent contractors, they're in and out as quick as they can be, they don't care what it looks like, as long as the customer gets hooked up, that's their primary concern. Number 2, and correct me if I'm not up to date on where this is at, but I am wondering what's happening with the license plate recognition cameras.
Right now, Chief, you want to address that in a nutshell?
It was not included in this year's budget. We will revisit it as part of our budget workshop coming up on the 22nd. As far as cost goes, we are looking at parlaying some developments in Delray to assist us in going forward. They haven't fully developed their system yet. It may be a good thing for Ocean Ridge. I understand that Boynton Beach is looking at a license plate recognition, which may help us. And we still have to face the fight with the state as to placement on state roads.
Well, in that regard, is there anything that the residents can do to help the town out?
It doesn't appear as if there is anything that anyone can do individually, or that there's not a big enough groundswell to change the Florida Department of Transportation's mind. We're working with the Chiefs Association, City Managers Association, and through legislation to see if we can't regain some of that home rule control on state road right-of-ways. If not, we'll come up with a solution for it as we go forward.
I know, you know as well as I know, that the thieves today are pretty brazen. They don't really care if you have cameras in the house. They're all gloved up and masked up. And if we can get the license plate recognition, it might be something as opposed to nothing. And I think we should move forward as best we can with that. Thank you.
And we'll look, town manager, look into that wire situation. Yes, ma'am. Hey, Betty.
Just quickly, Betty Bingham, 1 East Ocean Avenue. It only took me 3 years of constant prodding to get them to remove cables that had fallen down to this level on a pole that is in the right-of-way in my yard. So good luck. I think we ought to make everybody take a line down when the service is discontinued. And we wouldn't have all of those. And by the way, I know you can't do it because it's under a different, but maybe we could be the lead city of getting the communications people to keep their wires clean.
Thank you, Betty. Anyone else for public comment? Yes, sir.
So I wasn't first.
No,
Late.
I think you're last coming in, too.
So are you going to allow comments on the paving project when you discuss that, or should I give you my comments now?
No, you can wait you can do either one, but it's only one time.
Okay. Well, as far as the wiring and the poles and all that goes, we have a telephone pole on our street that's been leaning about 15 degrees for, well, more than 6 months, and the town manager knows about it. 4 FPL engineers have come out. I've talked to every one of them. 1 engineer from AT&T, who actually owns the pole, have come out, and they all said it needs to be replaced. Now, the town did go put some yellow tape on it. I don't know what that would do if it actually started to fall. But it's like you can't get anything out of these people, and you have a franchise relationship with them. I mean, there's got to be some way you can stick it to them. Maybe your attorney can come up with something. Get the pole replaced. It's rotten. They've said it needs to be replaced with a concrete pole. Anyway, that's not what I wanted to say. What I wanted to say about the paving project is I studied it. I don't have it committed to memory, but you know, you show the drawings and the graphs and the bores and everything. They bored right in front of the end of the street where Cindy Martell and the end of the house, where the triangle house is. And then they bored over here on this side of where the ridge is. So it's nice and solid, and it has a good depth, and there's lots of core. And the one down there where the Martells live has a little bit of core, and the water is showing 3.5 feet underneath. This was the purpose of this drilling, right? The subsoil
Well,
and the
just to check what's
subsurface to
underneath
be
the
sure
road.
it was strong enough. Well, they didn't bore right in front of number 40, which is where Al Corder used to live, and the water's at 0. So we're gonna have another coat of asphalt, and nothing's gonna happen where the bottom of the bathtub is. You're not even gonna put 2 coats of asphalt
No,
on there.
that's not the reason for the cores. The cores were to determine what was the substrate underneath, not the elevation.
No, I know, but they put that on their chart. And what I'm trying to point out is the spot where the water is percolating up through the asphalt, no one took a bore, because they know there would be nothing under there but water
Oh, yeah.
and wet sand.
Well, I have
So it's not
on
gonna be
my-
fixed. Sorry.
It's all right. Is that it? Thanks, Terry. Anyone else for public comment? All right, hearing none, let's move on. Let's see here. Well, let's move on to the approval of the consent agenda. Is there approval for the consent agenda?
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion is second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, announcements and proclamations. The Town Commission will hold a budget workshop on May 22nd, 2017 at 4 o'clock at the Town Hall. The Police Department will host Coffee with a Cop on May 10th from 7:30 a.m. to 9 a.m. at Town Hall. The town administrative offices will be closed on Monday, May 29th in observance of Memorial Day. We have a proclamation recognizing Municipal Clerk Week, May 7th through 13th. Tracy? And we have a proclamation recognizing National Police Week, May 14th through the 21st, and National Peace Officers Memorial Day, May 15th. Chief. Okay, Town Commissioner comments. We'll start out with Commissioner Cos on regional growth issues.
Yeah, at the last town meeting, I asked concerned citizens, to please contact me regarding traffic and our beaches and our dunes. And actually, quite a few citizens did contact me. It's probably around 20. And out of that, there's 2 people I would like to do a short presentation to the town about the population growths and how they're going to affect us, and then some possible solutions. And at the end of that, perhaps we can get some direction from the commission on what we would like the town manager and the police chief to do with the various proposals. So first off, Christina DeHassett, please.
Good evening. Thank you, Steve, for the invitation. Christine DeHassett, 29 Sable Island Drive, also Executive Director of the Florida Coalition for Preservation. Many of you know this. We are entering our 11th year. I can't believe that. And our mission statement is to promote responsible growth and development and also preserve the quality of life that we all enjoy on the Barrier Island. So obviously, when you have explosive growth on other sides of your bridge, which you need to get on and off of on a daily basis, on and off of for evacuation, it's concerning. That's also disconcerting when all your fire EMT services come from another side of a bridge. So just real quickly, we helped form a group this summer called the Boynton Coalition for Responsible Development, comprised mainly of Boynton residents. Many people in Ocean Ridge, not as many as I'd like, but many people in Ocean Ridge did support it financially. We were looking mainly at the Riverwalk project, which is at the old Winn-Dixie site at the bottom of the Woolbright Bridge. When it looked like this group got a good head of steam and was able to have some influence with the commission to not accept what was being proposed by the developer, which was a 100-story apartment building with density of over 60 units per acre. When we got a good head of steam, the CRA joined with city staff and decided to go and change the rules. And when I say change the rules, they took all 1,650 acres in the CRA district, which run mainly east of 95 all the way down the intercoastal side and the federal highway. And they changed all the zoning. They changed all their comprehensive plan and came up with a new flume. So what you're looking at in front of you and what you have in your package, let me give you a little indication. There's Ocean Avenue Bridge. Everything in the darkest, I guess magenta is what you would call it. This is their new CRA plan. So this is what is allowed by a developer within, they call it a 20-year plan to actually be built. So everything in that dark magenta is zoned as a mixed-use high, which allows 150-foot tall buildings. It allows 80 units per acre with a bonus of 25% because it's in a transportation overlay district. So that equals 100 units per acre. If you notice, that includes where the Bank of America building used to be, which is an open land right now, and a developer has a site plan out. It also scaringly includes St. Mark's Church and the school. And it basically covers those four corners. The bright hot pink, as you start to move north and south, is considered mixed-use medium, which allows either 75-foot or 100-foot, depending on which zone it's within, and units per acre of 50 to 60. So that's some pretty severe density that is allowable. Now, granted, the sky is not falling. I'm not Chicken Little, but market will determine what happens. But once a development right is basically given, it can't be taken away without the liability of obviously being sued by developers. So let's move a little bit further south, and I'll show you what's going to happen at the base of the Woolbright Bridge.
The next.
Yes. So here we go. Here's Woolbright Bridge. You see the four corners. It is, once again, mixed-use high. We move to mixed-use low and then start to move down. The mixed-use high, at least for the Winn-Dixie project, is at 105. They did not take advantage of the 150 because there's different overlay districts. Those four corners, though, if they were redeveloped all simultaneously, we're looking at close to 3,000 new residents. Just in that, it's less than a 10 square miles. So that's just a lot of extra traffic. It's a lot of extra density. It's a lot of extra parking, And I just think it's something that we all need to be aware of, because it is definitely going to affect our quality of life. There's absolutely no way that it can't. So my organization is very much in support of opening up the report and looking again at the study of having a fire EMT station on the barrier island. I think that will be the one thing that will keep us all alive, hopefully, if this type of stuff happens. Very in favor of the automated license plate recognition program, and very much in favor of all the municipalities on the barrier island, from Delray all the way through to Manalapan, to get together and do some joint planning, look at some traffic calming, look at other ways that, that you can be effective to mitigate what is eventually going to happen. Any questions?
There's a terrific slide where you did the math on how CRA, do we have that slide? I can give it to
We
Tracy.
don't, because actually this one is the updated one, and it's much more alarming.
Much more? Well, no,
Alarming.
just the numbers are phenomenal. Currently, there's 980 units at the intersection of Wilbright and Federal. And
Correct.
Christina's done all the math on what is been approved by the CRA to now occur there, if developers so choose. It goes from 980 units to 2,560 units.
Correct. So, all right, any questions?
And one other point,
Sure.
in the Palm Beach Post article that we discussed, you know, we're curious, like, is Boynton serious about doing this development? Even you kind of said that they can. Will they? Well, they're beginning to pledge $65 million of town money to a project that they're trying to develop at the intersection of Boynton Beach Boulevard and Federal. So when we look at monies that we need to spend to keep our quality of life, they're already putting $65 million on the table.
Absolutely. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Sure. They gotta come up, say name and address for the record. Bob?
Bob Weiss, Flute, 23 Sailfish. I don't understand, I want to ask the question. There's like 4 squares up top. The one in the northeast corner, if it's where I think it is, isn't that already condos?
Yes.
And
No,
the
it's a bank-
southwest square is the shopping center where Publix is?
It's Bermuda Cay and Snug Harbor, and if they were to redevelop, I mean, remember, both of those complexes are anywhere between 50 and 60 years old, so they're kind of due for a little lipstick on the cake. That's what they could do, but you're right, there's something already there.
And the other thing, Bob, is Las Ventanas, which is the northwest corner, under the new CRA, they're what, 5 stories maybe?
Actually, 2 on Federal and 5 on the highway.
And now they can go up, they can double.
I understand. I mean, I guess the thing that was striking me is, like, they're condos, they're individually owned. To get everybody to agree to sell every single thing and tear them down, it could happen. I'm
Yeah.
not saying it can't.
And don't forget,
but-
there's a bank right on the corner there.
Yeah,
So there is
but-
some.
Okay, I just want to make sure I had the right places.
Thank you.
So now that we see the problems, hopefully Mr. Peter Burling will give us solutions.
There's a lot on you, Peter.
We've tried for
You
10
heading that
years.
way? You keep going.
Thanks for that, Steve. Peter Burling, 7 Osprey Drive. A group of us met and took the time to really try to exchange ideas, ask questions, look into our crystal balls to have an idea about how this might impact us on the east side of the bridge. And to the extent that I could, I've attempted to pull together minutes of our discussion and the consequences of our discussion. And I want to go very quickly through that because this is hardly definitive. It is a way to start discussion, we hope, here in town. First and foremost, those of us on the east side of the bridge were unanimous in our view that there ought to be at least 2 officers of the law, public safety officers, on our beaches and in our town through the period January 1 through Easter. That's an additional commitment of resources but all of us in the room facing the discussion felt it was critically important to begin to focus on that beach access that people are coming across the bridges to gain access to. And you don't need to be there very long before you realize there is a steady stream of traffic across the east-west roads, particularly Beachway. And lots of folks simply have no idea what the rules and regulations of this community might be, and perhaps even less to understand what common sense safety might require. To that end, we recommend strongly that one officer be specifically at the Beachway Old Ocean parameter, and another officer be present at the central and north end of town to provide some security and guidance for the people who are coming across. We're not going to be stopping anybody, but it is important that we look out for the safety interests of the community and the people who are seeking access to the beach. And you notice I didn't say our beach. It is the public beach, but it is a beach that access to which has important ramifications for the rest of the community. We believe the obligation to provide this coverage is a municipal obligation. This year it has been a sort of a public-private effort, not out of the town's coffers, but going forward we think and recommend strongly that it be included in the town's budget. We think there is a very important commitment to be made in increasing violation costs. If somebody comes in and violates the town ordinances relative to parking or stopping or other issues relative to accessing the beach, I think there should be, and it is the consensus of our group, there should be an escalating a price to doing that. That is particularly true with reference to commercial beach usage. Those of us, I think, particularly on Beachway, now recognize as a regular flow of vehicles that are sort of selling stuff, either access to the beach, which they sell to people they bring in, or presumably one could imagine pretty quickly selling either food or beach towels or whatever. Those things are currently not part of our understanding of the use of the beach in Ocean Ridge. This is a way of saying at this early stage that the marvel of our beach is going to be an attraction, particularly if you keep in mind the potential development that's going to be on the other side of the bridge. And to this point, at any rate, the town has been very clear about its maintaining its, shall we say, non-commercial aspect relative to access to the beach. We looked at issues having to do with, several of us were concerned about the use of the town parking, the parking here at the facility. We very quickly got the answer back that that is the subject of an older agreement between Boynton Beach and Ocean Ridge. People can use our parking lot to discharge passengers and material crossing the street at that crossway and going into the Boynton Beach Park. The phenomenon, however, of vehicles arriving and stopping on Beachway or anywhere on Old Ocean and, shall we say, disgorging immense amounts of beachware and coolers and very big boom boxes and other things is becoming more and more common. And that is not consistent with the town's current traffic regulations, particularly on Old Ocean, and that's going to be an issue we need to be paying attention to. part of why the original recommendation of having 2 officers in that time period makes a lot of sense. Finally, it seemed to all of us engaged in this discussion, and I would say this is an early part of the process. It seemed a very good idea for us to begin to compile a readily accessible and understandable list of the ordinances which affect access to our beaches, access to the use of beaches, and I would, having done this in my own life for a different town, I would humbly ask that to the extent our town attorney, at the direction of the commission, could do it, if you can give us access, public access, so all of us know how to get to the material about what is existing law, existing regs, enforceable regs, about the access and use of our beaches and our public areas, that would be a tremendous step forward. Because frankly, I could ask any 4 people on the street and get 5 answers about what can and cannot be done. All of this is a way of saying not keep them out. All of this is a way of saying, as we head into a period in which development is going to put extraordinary pressures on the amazing natural assets that we have, we're going to be pressed to be clear about what the laws are, clear about what enforcement is appropriate and what isn't. And with that, I would just say that there are a lot of citizens now prepared to come together, talk with each other, work with each other to try and make this understandable, enforceable, and better. And thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Peter.
Thanks, Peter. So what I'd like to do is tick through the points that Peter made, because there's some consensus, perhaps, items that would get the town manager activated and get the police chief activated. Apparently, there's some confusion. If we decide something, we have to give a direct, please cost this out directive. So that's what I'm attempting to do here. So the 2 police officers, the chief talked to me about that. It's within the budget. We have a budgeted item right now. The chief has come up with a marvelous idea for what he calls certified reserve officers. They would be available on the Saturdays and Sundays in season. One would be positioned on Old Ocean, not necessarily Beachway, the entire expanse of Old Ocean. And the other would be, has a more difficult task because they would be in a cruiser or the Polaris, and they would be responsible for the beach and drop-offs north from, let's say, Edith Street, the Edith crossover. So that's the idea. The chief can do all this within the budget. And then a idea the chief came up with, and then somebody else sort of expounded on it, is to give the policemen on Old Ocean a police golf cart, which we talked about segways, but that sounded like it wasn't going to work out at all. So I would like, if there's a consensus from the commission, to have the police chief for the May budget meeting cost out what it's going to cost us for the 2 reserve offices, Jan 1 to Easter, Saturday, Sundays. The length of the hours in the day, I leave to your discretion. You're more knowledgeable about it than I am. And number 2, how much does a golf cart cost? It's equipped with police equipment. Is there a
So you,
I have some questions on that issue. Are you saying that we have budget money available to hire 2 new police officers? I mean, if I'm looking at, is this a 24-hour?
I've been faced with many proposals in the last several months regarding Beachway and staffing levels within the police department. And with all due respect, we do not have budgeted. In this year's budget, anything I'm looking at a presentation for you that may include an additional police officer to give you a proposal for taking care of some of these issues. In addition, in discussion with Mr. Kaz, there was a request for a part-time seasonal police officer, I guess like it used to occur up in north, with training and certification requirements. That's very difficult to attain. We do have a police reserve force, and I suggested to Mr. Kaz that perhaps in the budget discussions, we could ask the commission if they wanted to set the compensation for those individuals for specific functions, which you're allowed to do by code. It is in the charter that says that you set that compensation for the reserve officers. And that going forward in the budget, that we look at all of these options and perhaps come up with something that the commission and the town finds acceptable and do a cost-benefit analysis at that point in time. But no, sir, there is not funds in the budget set aside specifically.
I'm sorry, Chief, I thought you said there was one opening on the police force, and that's when you get into this reserve officers, which I love.
We currently still have a maintain an opening, and I'm going to introduce our two newest people tonight, but to apply this to the reserve officers will require commission action. And I believe that we are past the seasonal limitations that you ask, and it would be a consideration for next budget year regardless.
Well, do you have a perfectly good timing on this because we have the budget workshop coming up? So I think the consensus, with the consensus of the commission, that you should bring that as part of the workshop. All right, especially at the time of being in between the time of the season, which we have seen that over the years, it's been more people are here for a longer period of time and more folks are here. So it would probably be in order to the benefit of the town if we did have something like that. Now, the other part of it is, I thought the fine would be something we should look at, Jamie. The fines we have, Chief, the fines we have, look at that, bring that to the workshop. And the last thing is I'd like to see if we could go ahead and get a comprehensive, detailed, which I'm sure we've had from another meeting a couple years ago. You could just take all that information out of what the town ordinances are relating to beach access, what the town's rights are to the beach, so everybody who hasn't already seen that can see it again.
I believe Ken Spilly has generated a lengthy document between 2012 and 2014.
Okay.
Yeah, we have it.
Yeah,
You don't have,
I don't know if we're going to find it.
so is that a general consensus among the commissioners to do that?
If I might, I think it probably should be extended through Memorial Day weekend instead of just Easter, because that's another heavy beach weekend.
Well, more than likely, this is going to be something where we're actually going to be hiring another officer, I would presume.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like we're going to have, because of overtime and overlaps and vacation, it sounds like we're hiring 2 full-time officers.
No,
And if if you're assuming that hiring an officer costs approximately $80,000 to $100,000 between salary and what we have to contribute and things of that nature, that's, you're talking about $200,000 with a $6 million budget. That's going to raise, and we're going to have to raise millage by approximately 1/10 to 2/10 to cover that additional cost.
I think your math is way off. So this is what I was trying to get the chief to do. In other words,
Right,
the chief can cost it out, and I think you're not looking at that we're going to part-timers for, let's say, 10 hours a week, maybe 15.
Well, we do have reserve officers.
Yeah.
So let's just, why don't we, so we don't
Right.
debate it here, let the chief come up at the workshop, and,
I will attempt to give you several solutions with different cost factors.
perfect.
Thanks.
That's all we're looking for. Any other,
Yeah.
You did allow public comment.
Sure. wait a second, we're not done yet. Steve's not done yet. One more.
There's a checklist here. Somebody in the police department came up with a marvelous idea of putting signs on Old Ocean. Currently, we put signs at the crossovers, which apply to the crossovers. And this is something we'll have to discuss. We'll talk about unloading and stopping. I've been alerted to this. I don't know how everybody feels about this. If you put a sign on Old Ocean, not at a crossover, it covers the entire street. So that would give the police something to point at when somebody is in fact breaking the traffic laws. I don't know how we go about doing this. We have to discuss it. Town manager.
I'm not understanding your question, because there are no parking signs posted along Old Ocean. And in addition, there are the beach regulation signs.
Correct.
That are posted on the public crossovers to inform the public that, number one, this is a public crossover, and number two, that these are the ordinances and rules that are
Right.
generally in effect throughout the town.
Somebody, might have been you, Chief, said if you move a sign 40 feet down Old Ocean, you know, let's say you put up a couple that says no unloading, no stopping, with arrows pointing in either direction, it then covers Old Ocean. Is that not true?
There are requirements under the manual uniform traffic control devices for specific site distances for signs for them to be enforceable. If you're asking to change the wording on our signs, we've discussed that, and that would require, I believe, at least consensus, if not full direction, by a motion from the commission for me to do that.
So maybe it's as simple as just if you find out how many signs we would need on Old Ocean to cover it. Is that,
We are currently going through the sign process with the town manager in the sign replacement project, and that will be considered based upon what we have inventoried and what we've done. I'm sure that we've lost some over time because of the cost of replacing them. The town has chosen not to. And I think that that will be resolved in the sign replacement project.
excellent. Okay, just one last thing. I would like the town, I think this, again, is a consensus item. You know, we do have a problem at Beachway that we all recognize. At the end of Beachway, there's a wasteland on the south side that the town manager and most of us are very familiar with. There's a concept that's come up of putting wooden posts, like dock posts in, with 2-inch hemp rope running through it, which would stop people from pulling over there, and actually, it's like a parking lot right now. So I would just like to get a cost for that.
Commissioner, you probably know I currently have a cost in for doing a treatment down there with landscaping rocks and related treatment, but we have the estimate coming in on the dock and rope motif as well, and hope to co-locate that with a whole paving project for that street.
Very good.
Is that it?
Yes.
Public comment? Ladies first. Ladies first, Terry.
No, I just
Oh,
wanted
you want to hear
to,
what Terry has to say first?
I was counseled by my partner not to say too much. But the number 4, fines for commercial beach usage. Now, we know this occurs in the town of Ocean Ridge. I can name a place up on A1A, Sun Deck, which advertises nightly rentals on the internet and advertises our beach. So is that a commercial use? Airbnb advertises our beach. So you have people, we say we're not a commercial town, but we have commercial activity going on all the time. And is that a fee that we're going to charge these people who operate as a motel, even though it's prohibited?
That
particular
grandfathered in.
hotel, motel, whatever it is, sued
It's a
us
motel.
when we converted to 100% residential. They won the lawsuit, so.
Yeah, I'm aware of all that. What
But
my
so
point
they're
is that
entitled to do that.
we're talking about commercial beach usage. Would they be prohibited from having their clients or residents using the beach and then fine them for it? They're advertising as a commercial. I
They
mean, what are we talking
commercial
about?
use.
Commercial use. All of the rental people, by the way, Airbnb, the HomeAway, they all advertise beach here in Ocean Ridge and how beautiful it is.
Terry, I think the commercial aspect, and Peter will correct me if I'm wrong, he was talking about the companies that are starting to bring their beach equipment down to
Yeah, I
our
know.
beaches
I've
for
heard
their
that a couple
customers.
times before.
That's what we're talking about.
Anyone who's ever spent any time as a young person, I've been here a long time, I'm old now, my house is old, my dog is old, my car is not quite old. The things will change. The developers are not going to give up, and they will not stop. You all know that who've lived in Florida long enough. I've lived here since a child. It's not going to stop. What we don't want to create is an environment that looks like a police state. Anyone who spent any time in the summer on the Jersey Shore when you were younger, and then you go there now, it's like a complete police state in the summertime. It's like a different vibe. It's someplace you don't want to go.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Marilee Lundquist, 6277 North Ocean Boulevard. And the Boynton Beach has like 1,000 front feet of beach. The hammock has like 1,200. The inlet, I'm not sure what the footage is there, but what are the county and Boynton Beach doing to police this. They're creating the problems. Why is it, Ocean Ridge that we have to protect ourselves and provide the beach experience for everybody at the same time?
Well, if we didn't do it, even though we do a lot of work for the county, we patrol Boynton Beach as part of the agreement with them. So a lot of times it is on us. And it is unfortunate that a lot of times people who do come here tend to forget the fact that the town residents of Ocean Ridge pay for doing the roads, paving the roads. We pay the taxes to clean up all the beaches. We pay the taxes to pick up all the trash. So it's just the fact of trying to educate people to understand, hey, respect the town of Ocean Ridge. And that's, I guess, where all this is trying to get to. So I don't know if I believe in the police state thing, but I do think during the season, we are a little thin, that we may be able to bolster that, but.
Okay, another issue I have not heard addressed is they get access, and then there is ownership in Florida of the beach, a private beach, and they get access, and then they use the private beaches. And, they're free to walk through every day, but to pitch tents and, sit on private beach all day long, there's no policing of that. So I don't know what the answer is there either.
Well, we'll be working on that, Mary Lee. Any other public comment? All right, thank you. Is that it, Steve?
Yes, thank you.
All right,
Thank you,
moving on.
Commission.
Okay, next one is LSV, low-speed vehicles. Segway, not the Segway you'd ride on, but Segway into. So, what do I do with mine? Oh, you want to put that up? All right, at Porter Street, in the town, I've noticed a lot more of the low-speed vehicles, which are basically a golf cart that's been modified to run on the road, with license and tags and insurance and windshield wipers and everything else. So a low-speed vehicle and the rules pertaining to the use is basically it goes 25 miles an hour. It can go across all roads that are up to 35 miles an hour, if I'm not mistaken. And it needs to have all the safety devices on it. So I've seen more and more in the town. So with that, I thought there'd be a good pilot project to try out on Porter Street, because it's kind of hidden in between A1A and Old Ocean.
You might want to tell everyone where Porter is.
Well, it's on the, can you go to the map? It's located basically north of Woolbright by about half a mile. And it is a straight shot from A1A to Old Ocean. And up at the end, I'd like to propose that we put in basically put in a type of pavers. Can you put that up there too, please? That we can actually park these LSVs.
This one there?
Sure, Tracy. Now, I'm going to put that, Matt, the drawing of where that's going to be located, or what it looks like.
This one.
That one to your left hand. Okay. Now, as you can see, basically, it's going to be, there's a sidewalk there now, and in between the two palm trees would be basically that type of paver where you get grass in it so it's pervious, so let the water go through. And what we want to do with these is I'd like to also have each one of these permitted like you would a car. So we have a decal that's showing that it is actually registered in the town of Ocean Ridge. And with this type of vehicle, we can also have the permit would be for residents and non-residents. It'd be different costs. So you'd have a certain price for the town residents and a certain price for the Ocean Ridge residents in order to drive around the town. And the reason why I want to do permit is because if it's permitted, the chief can see who's whose, and it's a vehicle like we do on the cars. So,
Did you say residents and non-residents?
well, if you.
Is that a legal issue?
Yes.
Well, you need to have a permit process for residents and non-residents as far as the parking goes, so we can have two different fees. But, that's something that we would need to address, yes.
But if it's a public right-of-way, we can't prohibit non-residents
Well,
from
that's-
using it.
Now, that's the consensus where I need the most. The cost associated with the installation would be zero to the town because I was going to donate it because we have a paver guy, I could do it myself. So we pull a permit and we'd actually donate it to the town. What I need for consensus of the town is I need the town attorney to ascertain the ownership of Porter Street right-of-way, and then we can draft an ordinance to allow, this all has to go through ordinance as well. So that's what I'm looking for, to move forward the installation of the parking area and have the town attorney look into actually who is the ownership of Porter Street. Because if it's privately owned, then the owners can do whatever they want to it. If it's owned by the town, then it would be up to the town commission to allow this to go forward.
Well, who's landscaping that now?
We're taking care of it right now.
So
The town
that
is.
generally indicates who owns it, who's landscaping it.
Not all the time. I mean, the town does, other areas where the town owns certain property.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying, that, I mean, as a general rule, that people that, landscape it generally own it, but be that as it may. Do we need to amend, would we need to amend the comp plan or zoning for that area to allow that?
No, I mean, I don't believe so, because we're just dealing with public right-of-way, if that's what it
Assuming
turns
it
out to
is.
be. And then we're just using the public right-of-way to add some parking spaces there, which is for the public. So I don't think we're going to have to do anything with that. We would be looking for direction on if you would want me to go forward with the title report, and then if that comes back where the town owns it, then do you want to have that come back to you, or do you want the town to proceed forward with, kind of constructing these, the low-speed paver area as long as it meets town, building code?
To check to see if it meets code.
How much would that cost? Can you give a guesstimate?
You mean for the title work?
Yes.
I think it'd be $500 or $600, if that.
Oh, that's not bad.
No.
So how many parking spots can fit there?
Two. And these things
It's
are,
25 feet long.
yeah, but those things are 12 feet. Some are 8, some are 6, some are 12.
So you couldn't do straight-in parking?
No, you're gonna
10
come
feet.
in like on the side kind of deal. Unless, somebody comes in, takes the middle, takes it up, the whole thing out. Terry. But,
We're doing this for 2 parking spots?
you know what, the thing is, it's a good pot, because if it actually works, we could actually try in different parts of
Expand it.
town. Yeah. Okay, trying to be green. Any public comment? Yes, sir. Yeah, same, can't,
My question's simple. Is the permit only for parking? Because I see low-speed vehicles coming from Briney every day driving up and down.
well, see, that's one of the other reason, is that we want to definitely do a permit for them.
So they
And
would need
Chief,
a
you can
permit
expand on
to
that.
drive on the street as well as to park?
No.
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 Chief?
The permit that was spoken of would be for parking
Oh.
in low-speed vehicle parking areas, much like a beach permit would be given.
Okay.
I'll equate it to Boynton Public Beach. If you're a resident of the city of Boynton Beach,
Okay.
you can get a beach parking permit.
So
If you're
people,
a non-resident of Boynton Beach or a seasonal resident, you pay a different
so those
fee
that have a
schedule.
vehicle and want to park in that one spot would get the decal. But it would have nothing to do with them coming onto one of our streets.
No,
and
sir.
just drive.
State statute allows operation of low-speed
Okay,
vehicles.
thank
on the
you.
street.
You're welcome. Anyone else?
So these are vehicles that would not be tagged
Yes.
with a Florida license plate?
No, they,
No, okay.
They have a tag.
They have a tag of some sort, don't they?
it's a,
If-
go
if I-
ahead, Chief.
If I could just take a moment so that everybody understands, I get this question quite a bit, especially because of Briney ordering us. There are differences between golf carts and low-speed vehicles. I tried to outline that in your packet for you. You may modify a golf cart to become a low-speed vehicle, at which point it must be inspected, tagged, and insured. You can also take a low-speed vehicle and modify it down to become a golf cart. However, you would lose the ability to operate that on city roadways. Many folks ask me why Briny Breezes can have golf carts operate on city streets. They've passed an ordinance. They've gone to the state and they've requested special permission for specific golf cart crosswalks. They're in discussion now. They're supposed to only have one to cross A1A because the state road divides and you can't operate a golf cart on a state road. You can't operate a golf cart. That's an untagged vehicle that doesn't have the safety equipment, doesn't meet the inspection requirements on any roadway in any city unless they have a specific ordinance in play. I can bring to you all of those requirements because I just did them for Briny before we relinquished the contract to Boynton. They're still in the process. They have been for a couple years to get their ordinances in order so that they can legally operate their golf carts. The town has not come to me and asked for an ordinance for golf carts. We're merely discussing the low-speed vehicles. There's some flyers up here if folks are not aware of it. These come from Florida Department of Highway Safety and Motor Vehicles, and they specifically outline what you have to operate on the road versus what you can use for sporting, such as golf, or off-road activities on private property. It's very clear and simple once you read them, but they are separate classifications of a vehicle.
I just want to ask a question, Chief Lucy Brown, Harbor Drive South. So the ordinance you're talking about in Briny allows people to drive golf carts on municipal streets in Briny, right?
Yes, ma'am.
But not in Ocean Ridge?
You are correct.
Thank you.
And we regularly enforce that. We see folks that are seasonal, that you'll see a golf cart driving up Old Ocean quite frequently. And we stop them and direct them back to Briny. We try and be nice about it because most of them don't understand that the line is the town of Briny Breezes is where the ordinance affects.
Thank you, Chief. All right, so what I'm looking for is consensus to have the town attorney look into that
Sure.
ownership.
Well, we could start the process.
Okay. Don?
I'm fine with it, let's take a look at it. I'm concerned about how do you get to Porter Street? I never knew it was Porter Street, I always thought it was Harbor Drive, the walkway.
Well, there's a pretty wide sidewalk there that runs right
Big
up
wide
the...
sidewalk
Yeah,
between.
I know where it is, but how do you get there from the mayor's house?
You go drive around on the road.
Street legal
Yeah.
vehicle.
Okay, and then he's got to go cross what? State road?
Yeah, but you're allowed to cross the state road with an LSV,
Okay.
not a golf cart.
A low-speed vehicle tagged and insured properly under state law can operate on any road that a motor vehicle can in Ocean Ridge, including the state road, because the speed limit is at 35.
I understand that, okay.
All right, thank you. All right, moving on. All right, the next is, we're moving on to, no, actually, Jim, it's on you.
Okay, we're moving on to item number 9, which is a public hearing on an
No,
application.
no, no, no. Number 9 is you about the planning and zoning and the
Oh, I'm sorry.
commission meeting.
I'm sorry, I thought that was going to be the end, not the beginning.
Not
All right,
true.
what I wanted to do was ask for a joint meeting with P and Z, a workshop, primarily came up at the last P and Z meeting I attended. We have the chairman here, Jerry Garay, and they asked to do a workshop with us so we could kind of hammer out some of the things that they're talking about, primarily some of the issues that are on our agenda tonight, and some other issues that they think might come up, so we can kind of be on the same page as to the direction P and Z wants to go, and direction to give us when they meet and pass the items that they pass with respect to the changes to site plan issues. And so anyway, that's why I asked to add that to the agenda, is we should do a joint workshop with P and Z and try to schedule that.
All right, when do you want to do that? In May, June?
Jerry, when do you think
We got a lot of stuff
you might
going in
want to
May.
do that?
May would be good. Sooner the better, I think.
Okay.
If you guys have the time.
Well, we have a lot of stuff in May already.
We have,
I would recommend if you could consider June, you've got a budget workshop coming up in May in 3 weeks, which will be pretty
And
extensive.
it's also college graduations.
It's what?
When in May,
College graduations.
Yeah.
probably second, third week of June?
All right, so Tracy, it's going to be on you to call and to see if you can schedule all 10 people at the same time.
And just for the record, Jerry Garay, who's the chairman of P and Z, is here in the audience with, to whom I was referring.
Hi, Jerry.
Do you need a motion for that?
No,
No,
just
no, it's just a-
forget, all right, thank you.
Am I doing 9 too? Is that the one you got?
You're going to do 9, yeah.
yourself? Okay.
We're moving on to public hearings, and on this public hearing, it's an application submitted by Randall Stoff Architects. Being that I have a business interest with the applicant, I'm going to have to recuse myself of this particular public hearing and pass the gavel to Jim. It's all yours, Jim.
Thank you. Okay, we're on item number 9 on the agenda, the public hearing with respect to the application submitted by Randall Stoff Architects with respect to a land development permit. Let's see, let me get to
Would you like me to
why
read
don't
that
you,
for you?
why don't you explain that, Madam Clerk, for us, or you want to read the thing?
I'll read it for you.
Okay.
yeah. An application submitted by Randall Stoff Architects, 42 North Swinton Avenue, Suite 1, Delray Beach, Florida, 33444, representing the owner John Zessen, 6029 Old Ocean Boulevard, requesting a land development permit from the provisions of Land Development Code, Article 2, Coastal Construction, Section 6717, Coastal Construction and Excavation Setback Line, Subparagraph A, setback line established, and Subparagraph H, existing structures to permit the construction of a 2-story addition of a 1-car garage on the bottom floor and a living room and a bedroom on the second floor. The garage floor to be at 19.0 NGVD and the living room floor at 22.0 NGVD to match the rest of the existing 2-story house. The addition is to be a maximum of 168 feet 4 inches east of the coastal construction control line of 1997, and the addition of a swimming pool that is to be a maximum of 181 feet 7 5/8 inches east of the CCCL of 1997. Property located at 6029 Old Ocean Boulevard.
Okay.
Now, we have Gary, we have a representative here to speak to the commission regarding the application, and we also have the zoning official
Okay.
available to speak with you as well.
Town Attorney, do we need to swear in witnesses? Is this something we need to take sworn statements from?
I think you would need to go ahead, swear in the witnesses, and also disclose any ex parte communication that you may have on this item.
Okay, has anybody here had any, on the commission, had any ex parte communications with any of the applicants with respect to this application? No? Okay, why don't we swear in whoever intends to speak on this subject tonight?
That would be me.
Why don't you all stand up? What is it? Have everybody who's going to testify stand up, raise your hand, and have the, who's it, the clerk or you swear them in?
I'm not sure who, but,
Either one.
Clerk does.
okay, go ahead and swear.
Okay. Do you swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. Go ahead, sir.
Hi, my name is Ron Detweiler. I'm here with John Zessen. Normally Gary Stoff would be here. I've been working with him on this project, but he's out of town. His son is graduating from college. So we're back before the commission. Last year, John went through the process, and in August of last year, he got preliminary approval from the town, the DEP, and the health department for his remodeling in addition to his home at 6029 Old Ocean. Since that time, John has made a few changes. Those changes require us to go back to the DEP. Anything that goes before the DEP, of course, has to go before the commission. The changes are pretty straightforward. We increased the footprint slightly on the ground floor, which enabled us to add a second floor bedroom above the proposed 1-story garage. And then in addition to that, we are extending the pool northward from where it was initially approved. And that too is a DEP thing, and of course the town would have to agree to that as well. So that's the gist of why we're here. We're going back through for these changes. And basically, it's the same project it was with the exception of the things that I just mentioned. Any questions
Commissioner,
about
have
it?
any questions?
There's no seawall there,
No.
and you're putting the pool within,
Excuse me?
the pool is within X number of feet of the dune?
Yeah, and all of that, yeah, the DEP has a requirement, and in the initial approval from the DEP, there's a specific distance from the CCCL that has to be maintained, and that is still maintained. That number's on that plan in front of you. So they've maintained that furthest seaward point in accordance with the requirements from the DEP. That has not changed.
So, I don't know if anybody else wants to say anything. I did speak to some residents from, I call it Anna Street, you call it Old Ocean. And I think the biggest concern in the neighborhood maybe isn't the house, it's the construction of the house occurring over the course of 1 year.
Understood.
And there's no place to park there. Zero.
Exactly. The approach would be this. The first thing that we would do would be to create off-street parking. There is a 25-foot setback on the new structure, and there's a 35-foot side yard to the north of the existing home. The idea would be to take as much of that area as we can, put in a large gate, and be able to get all the vehicles that are there working onto the property. We would probably delay the construction of the addition until a portion of the work was done on the existing home. That way we could use that entire side property for staging cars.
So that's terrific, that's what I'm asking for. Can you put that plan in writing and include it when you put through the final plans to the town?
Absolutely.
In other words, your transportation/construction plan,
Absolutely.
not a long document.
Yeah, no, it's part of the plan, but I'll put it in writing for you and detail it, and I can show it right on that drawing right there and what our intentions are. And I understand the concern. It's you can park like one car there, that's it, at the present time. Yeah, a skinny car.
Any other questions by the commissioners? No? Okay.
I had asked,
Well, are you through, you through with your testimony?
Excuse me?
Are you through with your testimony?
Yes, I am.
Okay, great. Why don't we have the next, Mandy come up here? You want to ask Mandy questions?
no, I had asked that, I had asked Tracy to put a picture of a drawing of what the property looks like so that the people in town could get an idea of what the property looks like when it's completed, as opposed to trying to look at a schematic like this. And
I have some current photos
do you?
of the property. Here's what the front of it looks like.
Mandy, why don't you go to the podium, identify yourself for the record, and then you can, put the photos up.
Manny Palacio, zoning officer for the town of Ocean Ridge. And I was, in looking at the plans that were submitted, they were a little different in the sense that I didn't think that it was feasible to build what he was proposing. So I went out and took a look, took these photographs, and then re-looked at the plans that were submitted. Did my calculations for the lot coverage and floor area ratio. The applicant does meet the zoning requirements for the proposed project.
Commissioners have any questions for Mandy? No? You want to why don't you run through the pictures for the record and then have him identify the view that the picture depicts?
Okay.
What you're looking at right now is the courtyard, which is just inside the front wall off of Old Ocean. That is the existing guest room on the left and the main structure on the right. That is the rear of the property looking south. To your left is the ocean, and the area that you're looking at there, just to the outside of the building, is where the proposed swimming pool is going to be located at. That is the addition area where the proposed addition is going to be, and then if you go to the further north, you'll have the setback requirements of that are required by our zoning, and that is kind of a panoramic view of the south. That's probably the northeast corner of the property. You're looking, you can see west and you can see south, but that corner, that picture represents a good area, a good view of the swimming pool area and the addition itself. That is looking east, and that opened area there is the area where the proposed addition is going to be located. Again, this is the front of the property. The guest house is up above, and I think the bottom is going to be an entrance, is that correct? Yeah, above the, where the, Tracy, can you put that back there? Yeah, that one, where the garage door is. Is that going to be an entrance? Yes, that's what I thought I remembered. Okay, what you're looking at here is the south side, and I don't believe anything is going to be done over there other than probably landscaping.
That's it?
Okay, thank you. Any questions about the
Yeah, I
pictures
just had
from
one
committee?
question. This always, I thought was strange. Bedroom number 5 has no bathroom, no closet.
Bed-
There is a bathroom.
Go ahead.
There is a bathroom and a closet. It is in the main house, it's on the second floor. And it's dedicated for that bedroom
So how do you get to the bathroom if it's the middle of the night?
through the door.
Outside and then in?
Just in case you need it, right?
I'm just curious. So you gotta walk outside the house to go to the bathroom?
Wait a minute. No, not you. Public comment comes after the testimony. We have one more. You want to testify? Present? You have anything to offer? Okay, anybody else want to offer any testimony? We open up to public comment if nobody else is testifying?
If I might, before you go to public comment, we put up the picture that I was asking for, and this is the blueprint, but this is a rendering of what the product would look like when it's finished. And I thought it was important that the public see this because it's really, it enhances the property significantly. Now, what you really can't see is where the garage is. That's really like a 25-foot setback off of the street. And if you remember, if you look at where the current garage is now, it's about 8 or 9, maybe 10 feet off of the street. So they've taken the original garage door out, put an entranceway there. That structure stays the same, but the addition is set back for the garage about 25 feet off the street. And it, in my mind, it really made that property pop. It really made it look much nicer. So that's just my comment. And I wanted the audience to be able to see what the property looked like when it was going to be finished, because it's kind of hard to look at a schematic and figure out what it looks like from the street.
Okay, thank you. Public comment now. Marsh, you wanted to say something?
No, I was just going to ask for that, for the record, Mark Marsh, 14 Hudson. Can we look at the oceanside version of that? You just looked at the street side?
Got that?
I'm just only concerned, that, you know, this is where you get a little bit of proportion or disproportion. I think it's fair for the folks to see both sides of it.
Yeah.
Mark, you want this one for yourself?
Yeah,
That's the recent one that's got the 5-foot separation.
the elevation. You need help with that? You want the side one?
You have it?
Doesn't fit very well.
Doesn't fit very well.
No.
As Manny said, you know, this does comply. I guess if you can zoom out a little bit, you can see that the new addition kind of exaggerates the height. There is really, contrary to what was just said, I think it doesn't complement, you know, the fenestration is higher and that there is a whole disproportion. It's fine, but I'm just saying that you got to be careful.
Yeah, you're looking at the east side, and I'm looking at the west side.
Right. And, you know,
Street side.
it's significantly higher, and that's fine, it complies. But it's just a concern that don't look at just the street side, because there are residents on the north side that I'm sure have some concern about the scale. But it does meet everything, so.
Hands are kind of tied, okay. Any other public comment? Wait a minute, let's go for the back. Well, I save you for last.
Back first, okay.
Yeah. Well, yeah, he shot his hand up first. Come on up and identify yourself.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Al Nar, 6103 North Ocean Boulevard. My home, the rear of my home is on A1A, North Ocean Boulevard. The front of my home is on Old Ocean Boulevard. I am on the west side of Old Ocean. I am 2 houses down from John and Susan Zessin. I'm not here to discourage this project. This home looks beautiful when it's completed. What I'm here to address specifically is parking, construction parking. Now, I know we've just seen the pictures, and the angle of the picture shows a wide look at what it looks like. Have any of you commissioners actually gone to the site and looked at it? Okay.
I think we all have.
For the last 3.5 years, we've been experiencing construction on our street. There's been renovations, there's been additions, there's been roofing, there's been trucks. And the proposed construction site, in the front, there's room for maybe 2 vehicles front to back. Once that fence comes down that you saw in the picture, there's going to be a dumpster in that area, I would imagine, I'm assuming, because there's going to be a lot of gutting and a lot of building debris that's going to come out. There's going to be excavation. So, excuse this expression, there's going to be a flotilla of trucks coming and going all the time. To say that you can park all the vehicles, all the laborers' pickup trucks, plus do construction and excavation there, is not being realistic. I think you have to realize that Old Ocean Boulevard, from Anna to Corinne, that's on the edge of Zone 1, has 17 homes on it, plus 1 vacant lot. The street is 14 feet in width. The homes on the east side, on the ocean, some of them have garages, some of them don't. They have small recessed areas to keep them off the road, but their cars are halfway on Old Ocean. The homes on the right have driveways and they're totally off the road. Right across from me, there was a home under renovation. The contractor told me we'll be done in 9 months, 12 months the most. Well, they went over 2 years. Their trucks were parked everywhere. Just for the record, my wife and I own the vacant lot to the north of our home. Out of the goodness of my heart, I let them park their trucks there for a fee. But I asked permission of the police department for public safety, because emergency vehicles cannot get down that road with all these trucks. Just to the south of John and Susan's home, about 1.5 years ago, there was a construction accident. The emergency vehicle couldn't come down. It had to go through Corinne and then come down the wrong way on Old Ocean. And the construction worker was unconscious. So just to give an example, accidents happen and vehicles have to get by. When we get a delivery of sheetrock or plywood or cinder block or other building materials, the road is closed. There's nowhere for anyone to go. When UPS comes down, we're stopped. I can't even get into my driveway until he gets done delivering. And I understand that. And I appreciate that, and I work with that. But just to let you know, there's no way that vehicles are going to be able to fit in an area that's going to be constructed. There's going to be a slab that has to come down for that driveway. I believe they're going to relocate the septic system. They're going to put in a pool. Those trucks can't go back there. And where's the dumpster going? So, you know, I'm just saying the town should give special permission for this project for these vehicles to park somewhere nearby so that they can come and do their job and complete this project. This is going to be a one-year build. This is not a small project. And I think, you know, I know there's no parking anywhere, but we have to give consideration for this kind of project. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I think that's a very reasonable request, but I missed your name, the architect. Brown. In your plan, can't you cover all the concerns here in your transportation/parking/construction?
Initially, yes, but as we build, the idea would be to not start the addition, which is the dark area, and you see the pavers that are there. The idea is to use all that 35 feet by, say, 75 feet for parking initially. To do the majority of the work then to the existing structure, drywall, deliveries, windows, doors, all those bits and pieces. Then we would build the pool, which is furthest east. And as we progress, we would then build the addition to the house. So the idea, at one point, yes, at one point we'll have 25 feet by 35 feet off-road parking. That's it. In the front of the existing home right now, you can park a car, barely get it off the street. My intention would be to parallel park 2 to 3 cars off the pavement on Old Ocean Boulevard, have a 16-foot gate that would allow the rest of the cars to get into the property. But as we build, moving from east to west, parking will become limited.
If you put all this in writing and perhaps talk to the town manager and the police chief about the off-site parking that the neighbor brought
Well, that
up.
would be ideal.
Right, but that's something you
No,
gotta
no,
deal with it.
I understand that would require permission and so forth. And that has been one of the biggest concerns of mine and John's and of course all of the neighbors, and I understand that. You just go to visit the site, if you park 2 cars there, I just have an SUV, it's sticking out in the road 2 feet. And so are half the neighbors that live there because they have no room to park either,
Well,
for their own vehicles, let alone construction.
Another thing you can look at for parking for your on-site workers is, I think it was Mr. Melnick's house. When they built there, they bought like 4 or 5 permits to park at the Boynton parking lot, and then bus the workers from there to the construction site.
From where were they parking?
Across from here, there's a parking lot for the Boynton Beach Pete.
Oh, the beach parking?
Yes.
Okay.
You can buy 4, 5, 6 permits, park your people there, and then, you know,
Yeah, shuttle
get a
them back
van,
and
shuttle them
forth.
back and forth. That alleviates that issue. Perhaps you can talk to Mr. Nair about using his vacant lot and park some things there. The way he's shaking their head, no.
Yeah.
He's saying no.
No, and that's understandable.
But, you know, that's a suggestion for your workers. And then, you know.
The other question I would have, and all the time there are service vehicles parked. And most of the time they park around the corner on Corinne Street, on the north side of Corinne. Is there a possibility that we could park people there during the day? Now, those service vehicles are there to mow the grass, and they're there for 2 or 3 or 4 hours, and they're gone. I'm looking for a place to put people from 8 to 5 or 9 to 5, whatever the working hours are in the town.
Or go across the Woolbright Bridge and put them at, yeah.
Riverwalk.
Well, I could tell them to park at home and Uber over too, but that's
Uber
not very
over.
practical when you have tools and equipment.
I think we need this all in writing. I mean, there's a lot of great ideas to lessen the parking. Ultimately, it's a very narrow road.
I mean, ideally, we would be able to access some off-site parking because no matter how good a job I do, there will be issues and they're going to come up, I guarantee you, in the first 30 days. There'll be one person that stops out front and just says, oh, I'm just going in for a minute. Well, you're blocking the street. You can't go in for a minute.
I just think the neighbor would appreciate if this was all down on paper instead of this.
Right now, this is just for the CCL
I get that.
approval. And so we can, when they come back for final approval.
Well, there was, yeah, I mean, I
You
can
can always
I
put
can-
that in your permit.
I can put all
for
this
final
together with the
approval.
application for a building permit, and we can have discussions with whoever about off-site parking, and I do understand the concern.
Okay.
It's a valid.
Mr. Vice Mayor, just for the record, in our code already are construction site management issues, and they have to put this all in writing, and it has to be approved by the building official. And then tonight, you're looking at construction site.
By the time they get the final permit in,
Mhm.
that will all be approved, and they'll have to comply with the new requirements with respect to on-site construction. Are you familiar with what
No.
planning and zoning has done? Maybe we can give them one of the handbooks now.
We can get that to them, but the majority of the stuff that's in that handbook is already in our code in one way or
Okay.
another, and all has to be spoken to and approved by the building official and the police department and the
Well,
administration.
we'll be addressing parking issues too in that.
Yes.
Yeah.
We
So,
could get copies of that.
yes, yes.
Okay.
Okay, any other public comment? Yeah, okay, why don't we go with Terry? And then we'll go back, you already spoken once, so let's go through the other people and then have Mr. Narcommo.
Terry Brown, Harbor Drive South. I was just going to ask, when they're finished, what is the total floor area ratio going to be? What's the number? You don't have that on the top of your head?
Terry, identify yourself for the
I
record.
just did. Terry Brown, Harbor Drive South. I'll do it again.
I'm sorry, missed it.
There's a reason why I'm asking that.
We know why.
Do you know?
Yes, the town has a requirement for second floor versus first floor. We've met those parameters.
Yeah, well, what's the total floor area ratio of the entire structure, old and new together?
When you say ratio, everything is on the drawings.
Yeah, but that's what yeah, I know, but I'm asking what the number is.
Hold on, I've got it.
I'm not sure what number you're answering.
FAR.
What are you looking for?
Floor area ratio, the total floor area ratio of the structure is going to be new and old together, right?
Right, so you're told, here's what you have.
I mean, is this what you have it?
Yeah, but what's the total? Look at the bottom line, you
Okay,
always,
maximum, he's allowed 5,143 square feet. He's
Okay.
proposing 4,647.
right. The reason why I'm bringing this up for everybody's information, since everybody else has gotten up here with information, is that this floor area ratio, the maximum, is calculated on the lot size. These lots were platted many, many centuries ago and go from Old Ocean all the way almost to the water line, past the dune, up to the high water mark. So it's almost a third or more than a third of this lot is not usable, even though we're permitted to calculate floor, Matty's shaking his head, you're calculating floor area ratio for a structure on top of the dune based on a lot that was platted 100 years ago or more. I mean, it's just totally unreasonable to be calculating that kind of floor area ratio without stopping at the dune line at least. This is a point that people are missing all the time. All these structures are going up, and it's going to be a problem for us when that water, tears that dune apart.
Thank you. Yes, sir, another comment? George, want to come up?
Good evening. Charles Kittler.
Charles, I'm sorry, I thought you called me.
Charles Kittler, 35 Hershey Drive. I'd just reiterate what Terry Brown said. That dune there, I wouldn't own that house. It's in bad shape. It will wash away. This is a travesty to build that big a house on that small lot. That if what happens up in Manalapan several years ago happens down here, that pool will be washed away too in part of that house. That's all I want to say.
All right, thank you. Someone else who hasn't spoken? Yes, sir, come on up.
Hi, Michael Fink, 6102 North Ocean Boulevard. I'm really the one most directly affected by this project. I'm right across the street. So this will significantly impact the value of my property. My biggest concern is kind of what this gentleman said, and then the other gentleman. There's two concerns. And trust me, I want to be neighborly. It's just the original plan I felt was fine. Now he's taking up another story, which to me it's like an overly ambitious project that's kind of cram a 10-pound sandwich into a 5-pound bag. I think the idea of floor area ratio is very relevant. But more importantly, I think this height is not really necessary. I think you get a lot of square footage. The original plan was fine. I don't know why we got to change it at this point. The idea that you got to go outside to the bathroom, I think is indicative that you're trying to shove too much stuff in here. And, you know, I have an ocean view. I won't have an ocean view anymore. And just speaking as a concerned resident, you know, I understand he has property rights, and I respect that. But I think it's an overly ambitious project.
Thank you. Anybody else who has, no, somebody else has not spoken yet. Sorry, Mr. Nar. One more.
My name is Maggie Miley. I live directly to the north of the new property that's being discussed. We've been there a long time. I'm just majorly concerned about, I think John is planning on cutting all the trees down originally. He said that, and I'm
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
John had told us he was planning on cutting all the trees down
cutting the trees.
between the two houses. I would like to ask if he could possibly keep them up until maybe the construction is over, just to buffer our house, and how the swimming pool got pushed even closer to the north. It's only 5 feet away from us.
Talk to the architect.
You just-
Any other comments?
No,
I
just
think
a-
that the problem is that it legally meets code. So on an aesthetic standpoint, you might like it. And I would definitely work with this gentleman on the trees, the parking, the dirt that's going to blow around. Because, you know, it's virtually impossible construction site. So I think the more well, we'll see. The more communications that you guys have, you can maybe allay some of these fears instead of everybody going back to their separate corners and trying to, yeah.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Nothing else you could do.
Okay, Mr. Nar?
Al Nar, 6103 North Ocean Boulevard, Part 2.
Second story.
Second. So, just to comment on that, mentioning my use of my lot, my vacant lot, we were getting a 5-figure rental for that lot for parking each year that they were there. And they secured insurance. But looking back, I would not do that again because on a daily, weekly basis, I was picking up trash that the workers left behind, banana peels, soda cans, water bottles, everything. They just threw it out of their trucks when they were finished with lunch, and I went there, and when I complained to their project manager, he said, we'll take care of it, but then they changed project managers. And since then, I have planted some very nice palm trees in that space. I continue to throw down grass seed and fertilize it. And there is a town no parking sign on that, and our police department enforces that. And for me, I realized after it was too late, it was an invasion of my privacy because they were right there, and it was every day, and it was very just inappropriate. So,
Thank you.
you know, if I could, I would, but I don't think I'd do that again for obvious reasons.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, one more, and
Just to go on what Mr. Kaz said about it being permitted by code.
identify yourself.
Michael Fink, 6102 North Ocean Boulevard. There's a discretion as to where that high water line is. That's a zoning officer's discretion. So that is, I assume, is appealable, whether or not that was accurate. So I want to just preserve my right.
Maybe I misspoke. I'm assuming that the FAR was based on the legal description of the property. Right.
According to the property appraiser's office.
But you had to draw a high watermark line to make the determination, correct?
Yeah.
So, yeah, where you draw the line determines the whole issue.
But I don't think we draw the line.
Right, I'm saying,
We don't have any
I
control
assume
over
that a zoning officer's opinion is appealable. The attorney, I mean, is that accurate?
Yes, I mean, his decision, I think, could be appealable.
Okay, I just want to preserve my rights.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you. You got to remember, this is just for presentation of the coastal construction line, and they got to get permitted after this, so. Any other public comment? Okay, public comment is closed, testimony is closed. Commissioners, want to discuss? Nothing to discuss?
I'm
Is
disgusted.
that everything discussed out?
Discussed out.
Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the request contingent on DEP approval once it is verified that it meets all the zoning regulations.
Okay, do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Like sign. Motion carries. On to item number 10. And I give my gavel back to Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, moving on to the town manager report. Oh, we'll wait.
It's 7:30.
Imagine if we had put that last. Okay. Mr.
Thank you,
Manager.
Mr. Mayor. My town manager report is in your backup. I'll go over the couple of topics, a few topics briefly. In the building department update discussions, we've formally named Lisa Burns currently as our staff building clerk to clarify a point person and add some extra duties for her assignments up front. And we have other front office staff that continues to cross-assist her in either absences or heavy volumes there. I'm also proposing to fund an administrative assistant position for the whole general front office for all the various projects and things we're working on in this context. That's part of your requested budget amendment later on here in the agenda. I've also initiated conversations with Hybird, which is our current provider of our building official and our zoning official and everybody, to look at the configuration and costs of full-time or quasi-full-time building official duties with town hall office hours and more meeting attendance. And of course, as you've seen this evening, attendance at some of these meetings when there are topics that pertain to the building department here. And that's all in progress. We envision going through all these discussions and these various configurations for the duration of this particular budget year and also addressing them into the new budget year for full funding if we go off in whatever direction we get from you all. To add to our, I like to call concierge service here in Ocean Ridge of providing full service and quick turnaround and all the additional scrutiny and issues that both staff and the officials are bringing to the table in context of building department. We had a request on FP&L streetlights. There's been a constant request to consider getting a street light at the crosswalk of Hammock Beach Park, I can speak, right up the street here, which is the county park where there's a pedestrian crosswalk across into the hammocks onto the public beach. We have a tentative approval pending, of course, engineering and other considerations with FP&L to look at adding a street light to the pole up at that crosswalk. And we've also discussed with them considering putting a street light at the FP&L pole at A1A near Sailfish, which we've gotten some constant comments from the residents down there about the darkness and the configuration of that intersection. FP&L has been receptive to both, but their engineers are looking at it. If they choose to install those streetlights, then the electricity for those streetlights would be added to the town's master account as we pay for all the other streetlights that we currently light. Those are both in the logistics stage at FP&L right now. I put a note on here about Fayette Drive. We've had a lot of activity and actions going on down at Fayette Drive. There was some recent properties that were improved down there, a series of duplexes. We also had some trimming projects and some planting projects that have come to light. And there has been a lot of conversation about the perpetually dedicated beach right-of-way pathway that comes off Fayette and goes northward and then eastward towards the beach. And all of these things have combined to create some infrastructural issues with us because we have drain boxes there, we have water meters there, we have a wall, we have what used to be a full cul-de-sac, which is somewhat compromised, and then we have the issue of coconut trees that need constant trimming, and somebody has also planted some Norfolk pines under the power lines down there, which, if you know Norfolk pines, they grow to 200 plus feet tall, and they snap off in hurricanes, so we've got a lot of concern with that. I put in your package, just for scaling, if you will, a proposal that we had received from the Synthetic Turf Institute. Those are people that make synthetic grass or sod, if you will, which is highly pervious and highly durable. It's used in theme parks and other places. In fact, one of our most expensive houses in town, which is Mr. Melnick's, across the street, has used this in several locations as a solution. This is just one of many solutions we're looking at. We're also looking at brick pavers. We're looking at other configurations. But we've come to the conclusion, talking with the attorney, talking with the residents, and looking at the logistics of the situation down there, that we need to come up as a town, since it's basically our right-of-way, with some solutions to address that end of that cul-de-sac. And this is a separate project that doesn't appear on your paving plan or some of the other things that we're vetting out at this time. But I wanted to get, both put it on your radar screen and get some direction from the commission if you'd like us to consider or pursue any particular direction on that one. And then finally, and I'll come back for questions, the last 3 days of this month, I would be away from the office attending the annual Florida City County Managers Association in Orlando, so I just want you to know about that, where I'll be trained and networking and bringing back the best practices of my trade to deploy here. So any of the items that I discussed here, I'd be happy to answer questions or any others that you might have.
Who owns the right-of-way? Is it the town or is it the residents of Fayette?
There may be a little bit of legal debate, but we believe it is all, I believe it is all part of the public right-of-way, the way it is described on the plat. Fayette is a public right-of-way street, as is A1A, as is Old Ocean, and then there is a perpetually dedicated right-of-way, which is a walkway that goes north from the end of the cul-de-sac, and then down along there.
I've walked the whole thing. It's basically, I'm assuming the residents are complaining because when it rains, they're walking through mud.
The problems is it's very lightly sodded, if at all, and there's a lot of dirt there. It's at grade level with our catch basins.
And just so people understand, it's a wall and the dirt's up here and then it goes down. So you walk in the middle, and if it's raining, you're gonna be walking through mud. So
And there's some curbing there, and there's some other infrastructure, and it's kind of in disrepair and needs a comprehensive solution, in my opinion.
Do we actually know who owns what portions of what that need to be fixed?
No.
Why don't we do a survey or something to figure out?
Just give it to Brian, he's doing the one on Porter, do the one on Fayette.
Yeah,
Is that
figure out who owns what,
Okay.
survey
No,
or whatever.
We can do that.
Yeah, this
Now, the
this
other thing-
requires some expenditures on the front end to determine all these factors so that we
Well-
can move forward on it.
Either way, it's got to be done, so, but the other thing is, if you can come back and give us some other methods, now we have this grass, I mean, look into raising it up, maybe do some kind of other type of walkway, or, I mean, give us more than just the $15,730.
I might borrow your pervious bricks that you're talking about for the electronic.
So you have to get a permit.
If I might, does this open the door to the walkway that's at, I believe it's at Hershey? It goes down Hershey Drive and then goes up next to, next to Charles's house, right?
It is a similar issue, and it will ultimately fall back in the lap of the attorney to determine to verify the ownership of these alleyways and these throughways. Are they public right-of-way? Do they belong to the subdivision? Do they belong to an HOA? We know in the fact of Fayette that there is no HOA, there is no neighborhood organization. The plat dedicates the perpetual use to the platted subdivision, but there's no representational body or an HOA that actually represents that subdivision. Hersey, I'm not sure without doing more legal research.
I think town attorney can look into Hershey when he's looking into the others also.
Well, why don't we do this? Why don't you go through all the ones we have? You know, whatever it could cost, the Porter Street, the Hersey Drive, the Fayettes, and let's establish it once and for all. If we're gonna spend a few dollars, establish once and for all, what is the ownership of each one of those pieces of property? So when this comes up in 2 years, we'll all have that answer, and then we can, you know, make sure we maintain it as a town, and then it's our property or it's their property, and then at that point, we can determine who's paying for it.
Yeah.
Do we have consensus for that, just so I can
Yes.
record that?
Got a consensus for that?
Yes.
Okay, and I guess, Jamie, the area on Hersey Drive that we need to research because I'm not familiar with
Well,
that.
we'll go through the map.
I have these
Okay.
plats,
Okay.
these maps, Brian.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Holly Joe at 35 Hersey Drive. My understanding on Hersey has always been that the street owns the access. The homeowners on the street own the access, and that it's titled.
Right.
That it appears on everybody's title. And we don't want to make that look any better. We get enough trespassers on it as is. We don't want to invite
keep it
people
muddy.
to use it.
Okay.
You know, because then they go over the dune and the dune gets worn down. So, that was my understanding on the Hersey Drive access.
All right.
And that's exactly what we have to sort out. Are we
Okay,
go-
so,
go
but
on
back to the other methods on Fayette, though. Just, you might want to look into different means of fixing that, maybe for a lot less cost.
I'll bring you 2 or 3 options there once we confirm that, through the attorney, that the ownership of that
Okay.
is in fact the town's.
How long is that going to take you to compile that?
Hopefully within about a week, we can, if I can get the addresses, or a good description on the plat tomorrow, then we could probably start Attorney's Title Insurance Fund looking at that, because we'll have them do the title opinion.
Right.
It's not going to be us. Hopefully within about a week.
Oh, great.
I don't think it takes very long, unless they run into an issue. But I've been told, a week and a half, we should have it back.
All right. Any other questions for Jamie?
I do.
Oh, we got public comment out there. Ladies first. Betty? Sorry.
If my memory isn't faulty, about 10 years ago, we identified all the right-of-ways, where they were, how much was owned, and we fought not to abandon any of them. So somewhere, there should be in the town the absolute definitions of all the right-of-ways.
Especially, we were talking about the ones off of Hudson and the
We
one on
did-
the other side.
We did all of them.
Coconut?
We were not, we did not give up any land, and we identified every right-of-way in town. And I think I gave Jamie, somewhere along the line, one of the older maps that I had that showed a lot of these.
Thank you, Betty. Bob?
If you're gonna do all this, Bob Weissplit, at the end of my street, there's something called Raymond Lane. It's a sidewalk, it's paved, and it's got a name,
It's
but it
beautiful
doesn't
compared
belong
to
to
the others.
anybody. So that's probably part of the town's right-of-way too. It says Raymond Lane at the bottom of Sailfish.
All right, we'll check that out. Anyone else?
Not on this issue, on the building department update in the conjunction with the budget issue. That's the question. Okay, I'd like to know, you're saying that we are going to be hiring, or we want to hire an administrative assistant, okay? We don't have a written job description, So I'd like to get a written job description of what this administrative assistant's going to do. I know it deals with the intern, what the intern is doing, but I don't think we ever had a written job description of that. And then you've got just, to amend the budget, it's item number 15, we have, I guess, the fiscal budget, $108,246, and then you're adding $20,000 to it. What's going to what? What are we be paying the administrative assistant? Is it an hourly basis? That kind of thing. I'm more comfortable, voting on spending the town's money if I know what the administrative assistant is going to do and exactly what it is we're going to be paying them.
Do you have that information during that particular segment?
I did put together a description for all of you based on questions earlier from Mr. Bonfiglio, and I can do that
Well, you're
now
gonna do it-
or do it when we get to
No,
this
let's
budget.
do it when we get to that.
Yeah, all right,
that
thank
part.
you.
Yeah, that's good, Jan. Any other questions for Jamie? All right, thank you, Jamie. Brian?
Nothing.
Chief?
The monthly report is attached to your agenda packet for your review. If you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them. If not,
Well, I just would like to say in the packet, folks, if you, I'd like to, can you take those 3 letters? We have 3 letters at 3 different, actually, one wasn't a resident, but 2 were residents, and they were unbelievable letters thanking our police department and particular officers. One was Sergeant Stang, one was Officer Van Camp, and the other one was Officer Bob Massimino. And just as the commission, I'd like to give them a thank you from us for representing the town in a wonderful manner, and really appreciate the fact that they do that for this town.
thank you. I will make sure that they get the recognition.
Thank you. All right.
I would like to introduce to you, at this time, the 2 employees that you confirmed for hire last month. They started last week, our 2 newest police officers. The first one is Philip Salm. They'll stand up. I told them they had to do a 7-minute presentation each. Phil came to us from the town of Palm Beach. He was their public information officer and training officer. So if we have any public information issues, he handled Mr. Trump's rise to the presidency and everything up until last week. Phil comes to us originally from Ohio. He did 17 years as a police officer up there. We're looking forward to exploiting his positives for the better of the town. Our next employee is Deborah Boyle. She comes to us from the Miccosukee tribe. We discussed this last month. Originally from Georgia as a sheriff's deputy. Brings a whole new outlook to the town. All customer service related, I have to tell you. I'm very pleased that they came to join us and that they chose to work here. And I'd like everybody to welcome them. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask them.
Welcome and
Put them
thank
on
you.
the spot.
Bring youth, too.
Which,
Hey.
which one's going to take over IT?
Exactly. The shred event was a great success. Thanks to everybody who came. We'll try and do it again next year, budget allowing. We had 35 people, actually 35 vehicles come through. Over 100 boxes of stuff was disposed of.
Holy cow.
It's a huge event for us. I've heard people saying, I forgot about it, I wish I could have come. We'll try and give you a little bit more notice than 3 months next time. And remember, tell your friends, it's generally planned for right after tax day. Okay, right after tax day. And as Terry said, we do take advance orders and we'll figure out how to make it work for you. Thanks for everybody that was able to participate in that. And I told them to go home so we don't have to pay.
I should have put them in the front. Thank you, Chief. Anything else?
Nothing at this time.
Thank you. All right, let's move on to some action items here. Appoint open positions to the Planning and Zoning Commission. Jamie?
Oh, it's this town clerk, that's why I was thrown off.
What's that?
Yes, we have, as you have in your backup, Richard Bajakian, who was on the Planning and Zoning Commission, has resigned as a board member, especially now that the P&Z is prescribed to meet much more frequently, monthly, most likely, and in the mornings. He says that conflicts with his work schedule. We have recommended to you that the current alternate which is Dave Hutchins. He's here in the audience. I think you all know him. Has indicated that he'd like to move up from his alternate member seat, and he's attended most all meetings and is very knowledgeable about those issues. And then you may remember last month we had done a call for interested parties for the P&Z for several openings in the BOA that was available. And at that time, you placed several of those people into the available slots. One was left outstanding with his application of interest, and that was James Lemming, that applied last month to serve on the Planning and Zoning. We would recommend there that you consider moving him. If you move Mr. Hutchins from the alternate to the regular position, you consider bringing the applicant for the alternate seat from last month into that alternate seat, and that would complete the makeup of the P&Z with the resignation.
Great. I believe both gentlemen are here tonight, right? See Dave and Jim. Somebody want to make a motion?
I move to appoint Dave Hutchins as a regular member to the Planning and Zoning Commission for a 3-year term, and James Lemming as an alternate member to the Planning and Zoning Commission for a 1-year term.
Second.
Motion is second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you and welcome.
Yeah.
All right, we're moving on to the designation of voting delegate and alternates to the Palm Beach County League of Cities, Inc. Jamie?
Yes, this is ministerial each year as new elected officials are placed on town commissions. The Palm Beach County League of Cities seeks ratification of the voting delegates each year. Typically, what we do is name a primary voting delegate and name the rest of the commission as voting delegates, alternate delegates as well, for voting purposes, so that any meeting, somebody's available to represent the town on issues that come up seeking membership input. This previous year, I've served as your primary voting delegate. I go to all the meetings, but we also have a new town commissioner that has been seated, and he's started to go to all those meetings as well. So obviously, I would defer if somebody, an elected official, wanted to take on that role over myself. But at any rate, I would recommend that you name all the members of the commission and myself as alternate voting delegates so that you're covered. And we need action from this body on that matter.
All right. What's the pleasure?
I'd be more than pleased to fill that role for the commission, and I seem to have the time to do that.
All right, so I guess what we would do then, the motion would be to have you as the delegate and then have Jamie as the alternate?
No, as the rest of
and
the commission
Jamie.
and Jamie.
Yeah,
And Jamie.
the
Okay.
manager and all the commissioners as alternates.
All right, so you want to make that motion?
So moved.
Second.
And a second, any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Don. Good luck.
Yeah.
All right, number 16, paving, budget amendment, I'm sorry. 15, budget amendment.
All righty. We just passed the 6-month mark on the town's budget for FY17. That's when we get preliminary figures of where we are tracking through all kinds of various things. And the town charter allows us to request and make, with town commission permission and direction, budget amendments periodically throughout the budget year to adjust figures based on actuarials and trends and expenditures as the town is experiencing and changes in direction and priorities, et cetera. What I have done is I've attached a small spreadsheet of recommended budget changes. They fall in 2 categories for this juncture in time and purpose. The first one is the increased legal expenses. We're recommending you must amend that to accommodate the level of normal flow of regular legal services, as well as the commitments and priorities that have currently been put in the pipeline, resulting from substantive updating of town code, matching the affected policies, the related additional duties intended for P&Z and other new initiatives that we've been working on for months here. What we've recognized in doing all this work is that the legal fees associated with all of this vetting and corroborating of this work from a legal sufficiency point of view, has pushed the town's legal budget up way higher than was anticipated when it was budgeted a year ago, based on the trends at that time. I can let Brian speak to this a little bit if he'd like to explain, what the issues are here. But what we would do in terms of the logistics on this for a budget amendment is we would take the current FY17 budget level of 503,100, which is professional services, is what we pay the regular legal out of, which is currently at 98. Project out our burn rate, if you will, and projects we know are coming down the pike, and request that we add 70 to that for a new year-end total of 168. And to accomplish that, we would reduce the legal special counsel line item, which is earmarked for special magistrate and code cases, from its current 25 down to 20, leaving that at 5 to pay the regular magistrate hours for normal code enforcement hearings. And then we would find the balance of that transfer, the $50,000 still necessary from the town's contingency expense line item, which is $50,900, which currently resides at $156,048. Reduce that by 50, leaving a balance of $106,048 in order to accomplish those recommended budget amendments to cover legal expenses for the rest of the year. You want to work on that one and then go to the next one, or do them both?
Well, no, we can work on that one, but I pretty much, Brian, you want to explain why you're costing this town so much more money this year? Since Jamie already put that on you?
Yeah. I guess one of the things that when we start to look at some ordinances here and do different things and policies and procedures, we start looking at one, then we realize, well, we have to change something else because it is not quite in line with the change that we're making, or because we're required, needing to make a change there. Some of the other stuff maybe wasn't changed in the past that we're trying to kind of catch up on. And
Right.
so that's kind of driving.
So for next year's budget, we wouldn't be looking at this kind of increase because, in fact, we've already accomplished most of what we wanted to accomplish.
I think a lot of it, absolutely. No, I mean, I can't see this, once we get to a certain point, it's going to be, okay, here's the ordinances, then, there's nothing else to, that we would have to change on the scale that we're changing right now.
Okay. Because I thought maybe you had a question, because usually you have a question regarding that. All right, Jamie, let's go ahead with the intern then.
Okay.
20,000?
The second part of this budget amendment request affects the town clerk and treasurer expense. That's the budget line item which controls the front end of the house, if you will. All the employees that work out front. I'll just go ahead and go right into my explanation that I was mentioning earlier. This budget amendment proposed tonight is to cover the funding for existing and adjusted positions already operating in-house for the remainder of the fiscal budget year, the current budget year. Just as a sidebar, the things that we do, if this is approved in this year to play out the year, will all be readdressed as part of the new budget process for whatever we do the following year in FY18. So this is just addressing between now and September 30th in the current budget year. The projected reconfiguration of costs for necessary job duties as we move forward towards building this in-house building department with concierge service. I do not envision fully converting to the in-house building department staffing until at least sometime into the new budget year, FY18, as the cost for contract services versus identifying and recruiting a dedicated building official to the town are still being researched. In speaking to Highbird, which is our contract company, while they believe they can just give us more time under the current contract, I believe the modified contract will need to be developed to afford us utilizing more time of a contract employee if we decide to go that route. The other options obviously are using a hybrid of the hybrid contract and having an employee placed here under a third-party contractor where they employ them and we just deploy them. And of course, the third option is bringing a full-time credentialed building official in-house, which will be part of the discussion for the FY18 budget process. Included in this budget amendment are items that the building clerk position was increased 5% for additional dedicated duties and responsibilities. The deputy town clerk position adjusted 2% for similar redirection responsibilities and parity of the positions. And the current intern assistant who works in the front office, who's been a productive volunteer employee for the town for the last 10 months, in other words, unpaid, we would propose paying her, so we're legally compliant under labor laws, et cetera, to basically fill out the rest of the year in a semi-full-time capacity in the front. Those are the costs that would be funded with this amendment for the balance of the fiscal year, and that position would provide assistance to all town departments from the workloads already in the works. So we talked about a little bit of Brian's stuff, the building stuff, et cetera. The estimated cost for that position addition in this amendment is derived from applying the lowest level starting salary level in the town, currently offered by the town, times the 5 months that are left in order to pay that out if we hire that position. And then, of course, the tax and benefit multipliers are taken into account for any and all the adjustments that are made. So that calculated up, the recommendation is for a $20,000 budget adjustment for the current budget year. The building official, just for the record, the hours there have already been increased in-house to 3 partial days a week. They were only coming 2 days a week prior, so we've increased that under the current contract and the current costing of that contract, and we're staying within budget on that, but that's very close and tight. And as I mentioned, I'm in discussion with the contractor as to how we can maximize that out the rest of the year so we get maximum time on task and in-house here with office hours and address the added level of service that we're all looking to get there. Let me just see if I want to...
Let me interrupt you one
Sure.
second? So the 20,000 is not just for the intern. You're saying it's also for adjusting the salaries of the deputy clerk and the assistant clerk?
No, the building clerk and the deputy town clerk. There's a small adjustment there, which can be absorbed in the current budget.
Okay, let me interrupt you.
Yes.
So you're giving them raises, is that what you're saying?
No, I'm reclassifying parts of their job description which require some adjustments in what they're compensated for the duties. Would be similar, equivalent to FTOs, like field training officers, where we bump up 5% for additional duties assigned. So this is a transitional...
I don't mean to be a Grinch or nothing, but, so if we're busy, we're actually now taking the free intern, we're starting to pay her, and just because
Well,
we're
we don't
moving
really-
somebody to a different job, we're going to pay them more for the next 5 months?
That's the plan, yes. A slight
You used the word
increase in...
required. Who requires it?
Who requires what?
You said it's required when you move job descriptions.
No, I was talking about the intern going from volunteer help to being employed. That can't be a volunteer position under labor laws.
No, you said that it was required that we bump the people up because you're changing their job, not the intern. I'm talking about Lisa and Jean. Let's go right to the point.
Right,
Jean,
I'm
Lisa, you're changing their...
I'm proposing to adjust their remuneration rates based on their dedicated and redefined duties to put building clerk as a point person and deputy town clerk, treasurer as a point person, to separate the duties and align them with the positions.
Or those positions, so those positions then are quantified for that salary somewhere? I mean, so is that something where it's written, or is it something we just decide because we're doing it we're moving them and giving them more responsibility, we're giving them more money. I just wanted to see how
Yes,
we came to this thinking, that's all.
My thinking is, as we've added assignable duties, that I need to give them slight compensation changes for those purposes, to add those duties.
Do you have any salary survey or other township surveys on compensation for like
I
positions?
do, and we are categorically under market in almost all positions, and I would be happy to provide that data to
Well,
you.
you know, I've heard that for so many years, and every year.
Well, I know that there's other things here.
Yeah, I tell you, every year I hear the same thing, we're all way under, but I don't think we're that.
We're not way under, we're slightly under, and there are other offsets, obviously. Some of these considerations also apply on the police side of the house and other places. If you look at the straight numbers, we're under. If you offset benefits and duties and things, you know, one could argue that,
All right, so if we take the 20,000 and you break it out, what would it break out to?
the proposed administrative assistant position is based on the lowest current rate, which is $34,112 in the town. So it's that backed out for just the amount of the year left over, and the.
What does 34,112 mean?
The annual salary for
Okay.
the lowest
What is it?
entry-level
That's an
employee in the
annual
town.
salary, $34,112, $34,112.
That's where the calculation is based from, starting with the town's lowest salary, entry-level position.
So you broke that in 12.
And then, you know, benefits and multipliers, tax, FICA, you know, vacation, sick, you know, all those kinds of things.
So basically, the 15, about 15,000 out of 20 is for the
For
intern.
that, and then the other 5 is for those percentage adjustments and the multipliers related to those as well.
Okay.
I wrote down what you
And-
said about what the administrative assistant does and the job description, unless there's more to come. That was a preview of coming attractions. You said, I don't mean to pick on you, but you said assist all departments. But assist all departments doing what?
Trying to help all employees of the town keep up with the workload that's been assigned and stay compliant with all the deadlines and usher in all these changes that we are aggressively putting through the system. There is a lot of extra workload, and there's no complaint about that, mind you. But I think the question's been asked, what happens when somebody's out sick, when they're on vacation, when there's all kinds of things. Currently, what happens when that occurs, those functions are paused or stop until we're at full tilt again. So it is about expectations in terms of turnaround, in terms of accomplishing all these things, and having enough hands on deck to actually get the work done that's being assigned, as well as meet all the deadlines and compliant pieces that we have to. I will tell you that all of my employees in the front end of the house, I won't go into the police side because they've got similar kinds of issues in dispatch and other places, but all of the employees are clamoring for some relief, some assistance to deal with some of these issues. Now, if it's not approved, then we just go at it slower until we get there.
No, I'm just trying to understand what.
Well, I'll put it this way, I mean, again, I don't want to be a Grinch, but if it's not approved, and we approve just the intern, what's the alternative? You tell me that Gene and Lisa are gonna walk out the door because we didn't give them a raise? No, I'm just saying that.
It creates an uncomfortable
Okay,
environment.
exactly. So, just, if we would, and we're going into the workshop, this is the kind of stuff that I'd really appreciate that you kind of break out, so we can actually understand it. Because when you bring it up now, then it becomes kind of an issue that you don't understand that we're actually moving people and giving them more money, whereas then we're looking at the budget coming up, and that's when, you know, we usually do the percentage salary raises and things like that. So you have to know all this. And if we
Well,
don't know it until.
This is a separate issue in the fact, I hear you, and I'll make sure you have all that data. This is trying to reconfigure the front to meet the expectations and directions that.
I got it.
you
I
guys
just
are putting for us.
think I just hate to be hit sideways with something, you know, not knowing exactly. If you tell me it's $20,000 for that position, that's what I presume. But when you tell me, when I hear you were explaining it, and you say it's not just for that position, it's for these other 2 positions, that's whole different than what is on this piece of paper right here. So when we do the when we do the budget, I just want to make sure that we're in that same specifics.
All of these items, just for clarification, Mayor, fall under one department budget. And so all of the multipliers, all of the,
Jamie, I got you, but you understand what I'm saying?
Yes,
I mean,
I
we
do.
can talk this thing in depth, but you
Yes,
understand
sir.
what I'm saying, right? All right, so,
the ask is for a transfer from contingency to cover these expenses as part of this two-part budget amendment. This source would also be out of the contingency fund, which, if approved on the legal side, would leave 106, and then it would come down 20 from that, leaving 86,048. So that's the ask on all of this, and I hear and note all your comments.
all right, so is there, somebody want to make a motion for this, or any other questions for Jamie?
I'm trying to figure out a motion.
Can't you just call it number 15? Make a motion to approve item number 15.
There you go.
Which is the 6-month budget update amendments requested by the town
That makes
manager.
That makes sense.
Is that your motion?
Yes.
I second.
All right, second, motion is second. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. All right, let's go to the paving contract piggyback approval. Jamie?
Yes, thank you.
Oh, Brian, or who's doing this?
I'll do it initially and then give it to Brian for some legal and technical explanation. This is a good news item in that what we're attempting to do here is actually, quote, piggyback on existing vetted public contracts for paving and infrastructure installation. We looked this, if approved, prevents us from going to full RFP, which will take much longer and bring many more responses and many more steps to get there. We zeroed in on a piggyback contract that is in use in several municipalities in Palm Beach County, and that's from the Village of Wellington. And what it does is it defines metric pricing for paving and all the related infrastructure services. And we've put a Town of Ocean Ridge version of that contract together for you tonight and selected a contractor that was successfully selected under the bidding to establish this contract. Coupled to that, we have $200,000 of appropriated funds in the current year fiscal budget under the capital fund for our repaving, our rotational repaving program. You may recall this is the first time we're attempting to do this in several years because of the economy and for other factors. The only repaving that's gone on has been in conjunction with stormwater projects and other emergency fixes. Before you tonight is the piggyback contract that would provide the services with the intent of going with the paving schedule with named streets as we've identified. They have not changed, the streets we've identified for you previously as to the priority streets that we want to pave. And also there's, I have spoken in previous meetings about applying penny sales tax number to additional paving and projects. However, procedurally, we have not obtained that sales tax money yet. So there's going to be some steps necessary by this commission to do a budget amendment to receive sales tax money and apply that money to additional infrastructure paving at the appropriate time if we want to go above and beyond our $200,000 that's currently budgeted. Finally, well, two more points. One, we've also put some information in here on traffic calming, and we've been working with Commissioner Cos for quite some time talking about traffic calming townwide and various applications and where we might utilize that. And for the time being, we've kind of focused in on Beachway as a place where we might apply some of this traffic calming. We have some money in the budget to do that, depending on the consensus and the direction of the commission. And I put some examples of different things we could do. We could apply, I've got some samples if you want to see them, of an overlay traffic calming product on top of the new paving. We can also build some raised intersection tables. We can do some various things we can apply that would help in the traffic calming initiative as we move forward on these streets. One of the problems that has come in with that piece of it, the traffic calming piece, is identifying from the commission where you want to do that and what kind of project you want to do. But we're close enough now where we can piggyback some of that stuff into this project as well. I'm about to turn it over to Brian to explain the piggyback contract. The final thing I want to mention to you is in the back of your report is a map and the coring reports that I think Terry referred to earlier that show the corings that were done at all the locations of all the streets we're proposing to repave. And that talks about the science and the subsurface of each one of those roads. If you read that report, you probably came to the conclusion that I drew from what they said, which is while they've identified organics in some problem areas, in water table, in thickness of pavement, in organics below the surface, they strongly caution that we should be careful what we do with that our best bet may be to just pave as normal, that if we try in some of these instances to excavate and replace those streets, we might end up with a bigger problem than we will if we just mill and repave over them. I would like to leave the technical final decision of some of those spot areas that might be problematic to the contractors, the pavers, in discussion with the town to confirm that we're not stirring up Pandora's box if we excavate or pave over a particular segment on this proposed list that could create a problem later on.
Well, if you look at the, actually the report, the engineer's report, I mean, they say it perfectly clear, like you're saying. It is likely that deep-seated sediments due to the compression of the organics has ceased. That means that there's not sinking anymore. It stopped settling, it stopped compressing, the muck stopped compressing. So, in any case, replacing the organic would involve significant costs and difficulties in dealing with adjacent property improvements. So, I mean, yeah, we're just gonna mill the road, put the new asphalt on top of it. Otherwise, and that's gonna be, we could do that 10 times what it costs to rip up the road and put a whole new road in.
One more note, we did receive proposals in from one of the vetted bidders on the piggyback contract, and it all fits within our current budgeted amount for the mill and repave pieces. The bidder that is, or the assigned company that we're proposing in the piggyback contract had better metric rates under that same contract, so we think that'll keep us right where we need to be on that. So we hope to, at the end of the day, have a little bit of money to play with for some of these amenity enhancements that we're talking about, as well as a few other sources in the budget.
So what are we looking for us to give you then tonight, then? I mean,
I want to turn over to the attorney to talk about the piggyback bid piece.
Can I, before we get to that, because I don't want to go through this for the next 2 months. We need a cost for the traffic calming. We need you and Lisa to do a cost. No one's done that. You guys are under the impression that we don't want to cost it out. So.
The cost is in your book tonight for us.
Well, that's totally incorrect.
How is it totally incorrect?
It's got 25,000 for pavers, right?
No, the front side of that is for the asphalt version of that.
Well, let's do it this way. Steve is right in the sense that Lisa needs to relook at those two costs she gave us, because the $37,000 one with the Beachway Drive, typical raised intersection, asphalt only, it's entirely overblown, because we're not gonna need 10 inches of base rock. I mean, it shows right in the engineer's report what we need. So this has to be redone, and I'd like for her to get it redone, and then also include that, what is that?
Applique.
That applique on there. And
the paveway system.
so we can really get an idea, do the two tables. So we can really get an idea of what this is gonna add to the cost. And get a good, so we can vote on, we can get this thing moving.
Right. And then the other thing was Lisa needed to analyze the drainage, which we don't think is a problem, but she's the engineer.
So you can look where the water's gonna go.
Right.
So.
Just one last, if it's the consensus of the commission moving forward to do these treatments on the Beachway segment, then that's the direction I'll give the town engineer, and we can bring that back to you, the specific costs on those two installations next month.
Can we split that, I mean, between the paving and the
Well, it's gonna be part of the
traffic
payment, but I'm saying that to take at least get the price, to get a consensus, to get the exact price, not something that's that's a guesswork, that 37,000 was like.
Yeah,
pulling
these
out.
numbers are
We can
fact.
split the authorization for the paving from the authorization for the traffic calming.
They kind of
Yeah, but
intermingle.
That's what I'm saying.
But they're entwined because when you repave Beachway, which is one of your first roads.
So we can't.
No.
So we can't.
Well, let's hear what Ryan has to say. I'm curious.
Well,
What the
basically,
piggyback thing's all about.
okay, just to, very quickly, the reason we picked the Wellington contract was that it was one of the few contracts that had the MOB and the MOT included in the unit prices, and that's what we had to have for a piggyback or a true piggyback. We looked at some other contracts out there, but it seemed like the Wellington contract had the lowest tonnage prices for asphalt that fit into the quantities that you would be looking at here. Also, and if you adopt this contract tonight, it also incorporates the Wellington contract, which includes all the other terms in there, the indemnification, subcontracts, insurance termination provisions, all of those things. Now, if you approve this contract tonight, what you're approving is basically work up to the amount in the budget, which is the $200,000, and it also includes the, in accordance with the town manager's memo, those particular streets, if that will carry us that far as worst case scenario to, whether it's a D or D minus going up in that realm. I believe that's correct, isn't that,
Correct.
Jamie? Okay.
That's how they're prioritized.
Okay, so that's what you're going to be approving. Now, if you want to, I guess, and I don't know if I'm hearing this correctly or not, but if you want to try to hold some money back from this, because once this is approved, do we know when this gentleman is going to start working out? In the Wellington contract, it says, look, once we tell him to go forward, he's going to have to start within 2 or 3 days. I'm assuming he's capable of doing that. So that's something that we'll have to confirm, but this could possibly start very quickly. And so I imagine that's what the town is also looking forward. You're looking for this to go forward as soon as possible?
Yes,
These construction, okay,
That was-
all right.
and
Now,
I'm addressing my question too. Can we split doing the
oh.
piggyback from the calming?
And if,
we
I
can't-
guess, and what we will need to do is we will need to talk to this gentleman to say, okay, the traffic calming that you're looking at, if it's based on unit prices, because the Wellington contract has a myriad of different paving options in their contract. I'm not sure if some of those, if he can apply some of those unit prices to doing the calming that we're looking for. And if he can, then yes, we can use this contractor and we can use the piggyback, provided that we haven't already expended funds, the funds that we're looking at are already put it in the pipeline. So I guess my question is, do you want to approve up to a certain amount, but by the time the next meeting rolls around, I'm not saying that he would already be out there and be paving and going like gangbusters, but do you want to give direction to say, well, look, if it looks like after staff speaks with the contractor that and speaks with the town engineer that we can, that there's a possibility we can use the piggyback contract for some of those traffic calming issues, do you want to hold back some of that money to address that? I guess if that's your question.
Well, can we start working on, can we approve the piggyback contract tonight without having the definite numbers on the traffic calming? And, because I'm hearing, they're intertwined, so.
Because the asphalt layer
Yeah.
actually lays down several layers of
So
asphalt.
we
at the
can't, so
intersection.
if we don't know the price for the traffic calming, we really can't approve this tonight without addressing the price of the traffic calming.
Well,
Or
I mean,
knowing
if-
whether or not he can, the contractor can deal with that in his contract.
Well, what street, where was Beachway on the list of
Unless we put
streets?
Beachway to the
Where was
end,
it?
and we can always
Yes,
amend it.
on the-
Well, let me ask you this question, does
Yeah,
this
I can-
piggyback contract have a shelf life? In other words,
Yes,
if we
it
don't
does.
approve it
Several
tonight,
years.
and what is the shelf life?
It's about 3 years because it's based on the underlying agreement with the Village of
Okay,
Wellington, which
so-
is 2018.
So if we don't approve it tonight, we won't lose it if we approve it next month when we get
Correct.
the numbers on the, okay.
Correct, you won't. No, it'll still be just as good.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Don.
I have a suggestion that if we approve the piggyback contract, that we use the half cent or the fees that are coming in from the from later on in the year that we don't know, it's what, like $180,000 or something?
Well,
like that?
actually, it's a 9-month collection in this
So it'd
current
be
year, so it'd be about 81,000.
81,000,
realized.
we hold that back. We don't expend that. We do the 200,000 for the paving that has been suggested, and then use the 83 that we have for looking into the traffic calming, dedicated to that. The other suggestion I have is that if we went ahead with this one, we would hold Beachway back until we've had time to decide what we want to do with traffic calming on Beachway. And the other one is on Anna Street. If they're going to do the construction that they're talking about on Anna Street, and that's, I heard something like a year or 2 years, I think we ought to bump Anna Street back at least until next year. Because if you're going to pave it, and then you're going to bring in all that construction material, your trucks and whatnot, you're going to tear up, you're going to waste your money.
Yeah.
So those were,
Can
that's
we,
my suggestion.
can we remove Beachway and Anna from this resolution tonight, authorize the other ones, and then bring up Anna down the line, and then
Well, if it's a 3-year deal, what's the rush? Why don't we go ahead and, that's a great suggestion, Don, about the Anna Street. We get the prices for the Beachway, come back to the next meeting, and you approve the, whatever the number is.
I may have misheard the town manager earlier in his presentation, but I thought he said that we need to amend, it's not in our budget to accept the money for the penny tax. Are we gonna need to amend the budget to accept the money from the penny tax?
No, I think what he was getting to is that my concern is that when we first started talking about this, and then including the penny sales tax money into this project, that my concern was that you did not want to approve an agreement where you did not have budgeted funds already in your approved budget. So therefore, if you wanted to try to incorporate that 80,000 and make it like a $300,000 or $280,000 project, my suggestion was that you move funds from another area into this budgeted amount. So when we're approving a contract with a vendor, we actually have budgeted funds for that amount.
Okay.
And so that's, you know.
Okay, where does, have we started receiving some of that money yet?
I think Jamie has
trickle
said
in,
that you've
yes.
received
We
some
have?
of it.
Yes.
Where's it being deposited right now? Is it going in the
General fund, but it gets accounted for. Sales tax money
Okay.
comes in monthly or periodically based on collections.
And we'll need P and Z to get together, and do we not, we need to have them give us direction on what to use the money for?
No, I mean, they just have to approve, they just have to say, you know, we will take an item to them at their
Okay.
next meeting that basically says, look, these are the items that meets the statutory requirements. You know, that's what we plan on using this money for, and get their approval on that, and then move forward.
All right.
So it's not something that we have to have their approval right of way. It's just a nice procedural step to have, because technically the only approval that you need from them, or a sign off from the Surtax committee, is at the end of the year to say that these are the funds we've expended and this is what we did it for. You know, you need to bless it that it was done okay. I'm just trying to get them to do that in advance so there's no hiccups at the end.
Okay.
Can
All
I
right,
make
so
a
we-
clarification, just real quick, for your purpose? The 10 or so streets that are earmarked for this project are based on the priority of their grade. We can control the order they're done in. We can delay Beachway while we're working on the others, for example, so that you have a time to come forward with some additional amenities there. And I wanted to clarify for you, there's East Anna Street and West Anna Street, east being east of A1A, which is, I believe, the segment that Commissioner Magruder is referring to. If that's going to be a construction conflict or whatever, we can certainly delay that one or accelerate any one of these, accelerate or delay accordingly. The town would make the decision in the sequencing of these based on the condition and grouping. So you have flexibility in that if we're working under the master contract.
Yeah, but if they start, you know, within a few days of this approval, how long is it gonna take them to get to East Anna and Beachway? I mean, were they gonna get there before the next meeting?
We're not approving it now.
I'm not sure, but I mean, that's part of my question is, it seems like if the commission is kind of like, what's the rush? Let's wait till we get some of these other things accomplished, or at least, I guess, more information from the town engineer on the traffic calming, and then we can get further clarification from this vendor on exactly when they can start. You may want to wait until the next meeting
No, I think
before you
that's-
approve this.
One thing, Jamie, just so we're clear on this, the paving company is also the initial base for the traffic calming. So see, that's still the same thing.
If we do that design,
So
yes.
you save money if he happens to raise the intersection at the same time.
Right.
Then the paving applique company comes in, if you will.
Yes.
Does some really cool designs.
That's correct. One other thing to
But we
note,
gotta
that
ask the paver for the cost. We don't want the cost from the applique guy.
two very important notes for, again, for clarification. One is that the conversations came up previously about doing traffic calming separate than paving, because if we do address the sub-base of the road, it's natural to put those together so you save money and coordinate timing. That's one issue. The other issue is that we have $200,000 budgeted for repaving that has to be expended in this fiscal budget year, which has a lot to do with the timing, because the paving was always intended to go forward off-season and has to be finished, paid for, and out the door before the fiscal year changes over. Otherwise, we have to because it's government accounting laws and rules.
We're losing everybody here.
Okay.
So let's just postpone this. Now, so the consensus is we need to get the costs nailed down, itemized, so we can approve this at the next meeting. Can we get that done?
For the individual projects, correct?
We're gonna leave out East Anna, because that's a great point that Don brought up. And the two traffic calming thing, raising the road, it's only raising it 3 inches. That's all that table is 3 inches more than the normal level of the road. That's it. So, get that price, get the real price, factual price, that, what we got, and then we vote on it in the next meeting.
Okay,
So we could do it different other streets too, to that.
My question to you, Mayor, is there anything preventing you from approving the piggyback contract to get this into motion?
No, if we do,
Aside
though,
from the issues.
if we do and they mobilize, and all of a sudden we're scrambling to give them streets to pave.
Why can't we do the piggyback contract and approve everything except East Anna and Beachway, and then come back next month?
Why can't we tell them they can't start till July?
No, we could tell them to start on these other streets, and then, except we don't start on East Anna and Beachway, and then next meeting, we'll have the numbers.
We got 5 months? I mean,
The issue we ran in talking to one of the contractors is the scheduling for paving is already projecting into the midsummer and beyond. Because, for two reasons. One, that's when everybody wants to do their paving, and two, everybody in the county has had penny sales tax money freed up to pay for
So we
paving.
can't do it.
So it's becoming competitive to get scheduling for paving. That's why sooner is better than later, from a scheduling standpoint.
well, I guess if we did vote on it now for the 200,000, we could actually give them the streets a month from now.
We could tell them which
So
ones
what
they.
you're saying then is they will not start. That was the earlier question. Will they be mobilizing right away? The answer is no, because they won't be on till June or
The
July.
schedule doesn't allow.
Brian indicated that's a condition of the contract, but I think as the contract holder, we can
Oh, yeah, we can.
modify that condition to not start
Right,
immediately.
we can tell them when to
Right, yeah.
start.
All right, well, who wants to make a motion?
All right, I move that we approve the piggyback contract with Unit Rice Paving and Services by M&M Paving, All County Paving Inc., expend the $200,000 as budgeted on priority listed street segments, unless any problem segments identified in the engineering coring reports, excluding for now the paving directed to East Anna and Beachway.
No, just East Anna.
No?
Just leave it in there, because then we can give them the streets, because they're not going to start till probably a month or
Okay.
two down the road.
I will
At
amend
that
my
point, we can
motion
give the street.
and delete the reference to East Anna and Beachway.
Great.
Second.
Motion is second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Now, let's see if we can get through these three resolutions really quick. A resolution for the Town Commission of the Town of Ocean Ridge, Florida, commending the Florida Association of City Clerk for its 45th anniversary.
I move to adopt resolution number 2017-07, commending the Florida Association of City Clerks for its 45th anniversary.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second, motion second, any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Resolution number 2017-8, a resolution of the Town Commission of the Ocean Ridge, Florida, supporting United States congressional bills SB 279 and HB 833 to amend Section 935 of the Water Resources Development Act of 1986 to facilitate the use of foreign offshore sand in beach renourishment projects, urging the United States Congress to expedite and fund the study to allow foreign sand to be used in beach nourishment projects in Palm Beach County, directing the town clerk to transmit a copy of this resolution to the officials stated herein, providing for authorization and implementation, and providing for an effective date.
I move that we adopt resolution number 2017-08, supporting United States congressional bills, Senate 279 and House Bill 833, as set forth in the agenda item number 18.
Second. Motion is second. Any other discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. And last resolution, Resolution 2017-09, a resolution of the Town Commission of the Town of Ocean Ridge, revising the building permit fee schedule. Everybody knows about that one? Do you want a quick explanation?
I thought there'd be some discussion on this, I think should be.
What's revising the permit? Oh, we're only adding the,
Just adding.
That one.
Anybody wants to say anything about it? Okay.
you can, if you
I
want.
move to adopt, I'm not opposed to it, I move to adopt resolution number 2017-09, revising the building permit fee scheduled effective May 1, 2017.
Second. Second, any other discussion? We're raising the $50 fee to close permit. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. All right, first reading of ordinances. Tracy, you're up.
Ordinance number 619, an ordinance of the Town of Ocean Ridge, Florida, amending its Code of Ordinances by amending Chapter 63, General and Administrative Provisions, Article 4, Site Plan Review Procedures, to provide for site plan review of new construction that meets a certain threshold, and to clarify the review of new construction involving certain thresholds, providing for codification, repeal of conflicting ordinances, severability, and an effective date.
All right, Brian.
Okay, this ordinance that's before you was recommended for approval by the Planning and Zoning Commission at their April 17th meeting. The changes, or what it provides, it essentially provides that new construction of single-family homes and single-family homes that are that increase their footprint size, the building footprint size, more than 50%, or where there is an increase in, or where there is a cost of renovation, of exterior renovation, that exceeds 50% of the building cost of the existing structure, trips the need or qualifies that as a major improvement. Okay, normally in your code you had all construction on single-family homes as minor improvement, which minor improvements which meant that they did not get reviewed by the Planning and Zoning Commission, and there were not any notice requirements to neighbors or anything of that effect, that basically once the zoning official would look at it and say it's okay, it meets the height requirements, it meets the code requirements, then it would go forward for approval, and as long as they complied with their building permit criteria, then they could get a building permit and build. This changes that and basically provides that no, you will go in front of, if you meet those criteria, you will go in front of the Planning and Zoning Board, where the Planning and Zoning Board will then have the authority to review the plan, which means that there'll have to be notice sent out to neighbors. Now, that's one of the changes that had been provided in here was the distance requirement change from 300 feet to 250 feet as far as notifying your neighbors. The other thing, and I won't get into too much detail, you all have it in the ordinance as far as the criteria that the Planning and Zoning Commission would be looking at, and once again, the Planning and Zoning Commission would have the final approval authority over this. The only way that you all may look at it is if it would be appealed to you. Otherwise, the Planning and Zoning Commission would be the final reviewer of this. They would be looking at the relationship of the building to the site, the relationship of the building and the site to adjoining areas, and then building design. There's also a provision that is provided for as far as like a concept plan review. So if someone wants to come in front of the Planning and Zoning Commission before they actually develop plans and spend a lot of money in order to do that, they can bring a rendering in front of the Planning and Zoning Commission or some, let's say, smaller scale plans, and have the Planning and Zoning Commission take a look at this item or take a look at the structure and get their input before they actually move forward, but that's on a voluntary basis. And that would not be subject to the criteria of notice or anything like that, because the Planning and Zoning Commission would not be taking final action on that. And so in a nutshell, that's kind of what it is. There will be added increase in cost to people who, when they fall into that major development category. And there will be added timelines on the plans for review, because the Planning and Zoning Commission meets once a month.
Okay, well, being that this is the first reading of this ordinance, and we've outlasted all the people who wanted to speak tonight to this, if you want to delve in it, we can, or we can go ahead and, like I said, it's like first reading, and you're going to have to do another reading and then the final adoption, so. You know, in the meantime, I believe there will be some changes coming along to this before the next meeting, is there not, Brian? Was there any amendments you were going to?
No, not, this one here was essentially, I know that I've had individual conversations with some commissioners who might have a few tweaks to it and things like that, but otherwise, on this one, I don't think there was any changes.
Okay.
I mean, once again, this came from the Planning and Zoning, Commission. This was their recommended ordinance, so.
But the question is, like, I have some changes. Do you want to change it without P and Z being here? That seems inappropriate, doesn't it?
Well, what you could do, you could bring your changes to Brian during the week, and then at the second reading, before that, we would get those of what requests you had to change it.
Well, in the meantime, if you want me to, I mean, it's entirely up to you, but I mean, Planning and Zoning, I think, when are they going to be meeting again?
Next week.
Next
Monday.
week, I mean, just as not so much as an action item, but we can include, make the changes that you all propose, and we can just include it in their packet and say, by the way.
I think you
But-
need
But
a
it's up
decent
to you.
discussion.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you need,
This is not
I think
a
you need it
review
with-
process. This is an approval.
closer to 6 o'clock than 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
And if I may, the Planning and Zoning Commission, when they approved this rendering, did so with the thought that we should do it quicker than later. They wanted to try and get it done through the commission, the first reading in May, and then the second reading, with amendments and whatnot, in June, so that we didn't appear to be doing things, or they appear to be doing things in the summer months when most of the residents weren't here.
Well, they should have stayed there.
Well, I can
Yeah, but
understand
it
what
is
you're saying,
late.
but when an ordinance is something you gotta kind of think through, because once it's on the books, it's kind of hard to.
Yeah.
Let me tell you what one thing that concerns me is they're, they're not guidelines anymore. They're saying yay or nay. But then, they want to reduce the notification area from 300 feet to 250 feet. In other words, if people have an objection to what's going on, or approve what's going on, and P and Z is the board that gives the final approval and then it only appeals to us, why not give that notice to more people as opposed to less people?
Well, I have to agree with you, because it would be concurrent with what we do for the variances, is 300 feet.
Yeah.
So it should be uniform throughout the code. Also, the whole purpose of this is to really notify the neighbors of what's going on.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you guys have the CCL thing, and half the people are not talking about the CCL, they're talking about the size of the place
Yeah,
next to the dune, and this is the mechanism to get to that conversation.
And 300 feet is only 100 yards. That's only like 2 or 3 lots on either side.
You missed it.
That's over, we already voted on it, sorry.
Anyway, I mean, I think you probably ought to expand to 300 feet as opposed to
I think if you make it
lower it, but I
uniform
mean,
throughout, yeah.
the point is, you don't want to eliminate people from
No,
input.
I agree.
You want to at least keep it the same, if not increase the
It's kind of
notification.
strange because P and Z increases their input and
yeah.
restricts the neighbor's input.
Well,
But-
maybe you should ask Mr. Marks.
Are we tabling this till next week?
Well,
No.
no, it's not gonna be,
No.
it's gonna, changes between now and the second reading, and then the second reading is the final bell, so.
No, you
that's
get 30 at the
really-
final.
So, and then, then,
Well, no, on second reading, that's it.
That's
You're
it.
done.
Second-
If you approve it on first reading tonight, then you have one more shot at it, and
and
that's
then the second reading, so.
Then you either say yes or
gets-
no,
goes
or
yea
table
nay,
it,
and
or-
then-
yeah.
But I'm gonna, I'm more comfortable with it, like I said, closer to 6 o'clock than 9 o'clock at night, because, I mean, let's face it, this has been a long night, and
Well,
people
the-
ought to.
Mayor, can I just say something?
Sure.
Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, but if the commission wants to make changes to this proposed ordinance, they would do that now and direct staff to make those changes for second reading, correct?
Yes, I mean, if they wanted us to bring back changes for second reading, you need to give me direction
Right.
now. I
So
mean,
if you wanted to change the 250 to the 300, you would do that now so we could make the changes for the second reading.
Come on up, Mark. We thought we lost you.
Yeah, for the record, Mark Marsh, 14 Hudson Avenue. I think, yeah, there's kind of a false fear that's going around, I think, the town. What we're trying to do, initially we tried, and Brian and our commission worked on trying to keep this more of a courtesy review. The reason we feel it's necessary is because the town is getting a lot of activity, of which some could be deemed out of control in terms of some of the massing and the scale of some of the proposed buildings. And it was determined, I think, by Brian and the Planning and Zoning Board that if you're going to have a review committee, it has to have some format. You can't just leave it open. And there are two thresholds. One is 50% of the appraised building value would kick you into this application or a new project. Now, why I showed that addition earlier is a great example. And it was said, Don had said, oh, this looks good from the street. But again, if there's nobody to kind of look at it and see if it's right in proportion, I didn't want to get into it because it wasn't an appropriate thing, but the scale of that proposed addition is totally incongruous with the existing house. It's higher, the fenestration is almost a third of the height more. And those are the kinds of things that affect neighbors and affect property values. And I think that's what the concern is. Nobody's here trying to mandate color, materials. You voluntarily submit what you would like to do. And the Planning and Zoning Board, which most likely would be the nominated primary review board, would look at that and see, is it in keeping, with the harmonious element of the town. I think we have a couple of built and currently under construction projects that are going to open people's eyes. You're going to get some really, upset people that, how the hell did this get, sorry, I didn't mean to swear. How did this get through, how is this approvable? And I think this is just a check and balance, and I think, Brian's worked very hard in trying to format this ordinance. But I think the initial thing, and I can understand the knee-jerk, is we're going to regulate, we're going to be subjective, we're going to control what people do. I don't think that's the intent. And I've said this a number of times, this is the only town or village along the coast that doesn't have some form of review, and there's a reason for it. It's primarily to protect values, property values, and things are not being, the way the town is set up right now, Manny is the party or the staff person appointed to review zoning and building, not aesthetics. And it's unfair, as I've said before, to have him, who's not trained, to review that. I think if you have a 5-person board or whatever, that some discussion, and it's not, I think there'll be agreement, and nobody's trying to mandate what it should look like or it, what the result could be. And it's just, I think it's long overdue personally. I'm kind of championing it, and I think the Planning and Zoning Board agreed with our position, or my position, and Brian's taking care of the legal aspects. But I think if we don't do something soon, Delray is priced out. People are going to start moving into Ocean Ridge. They're going to come in, they're going to be spec development, and there's no real control or review situation to at least alert people to what might be coming.
So
And that's,
I think everybody here would agree with what you're saying, totally, at least I would. But that's not what's written here. That's the problem.
but the written aspect, I'll let Brian, you have to have, and this is where we kind of debated back and forth, because as I said, it was more of a courtesy thing. Let's just give us the option to look at it and make some comments. But you can't enforce something if you don't have some formal
I understand
submission.
that.
And it's then up to the board, and if it's appealed up
You
up
can
to-
appeal it too, that's the thing,
to
the
you.
mechanism to get
Yeah.
passed if there.
Yeah, I
But
mean,
the way Mark just described it, that I'm not gonna tell you what to build, not gonna tell you what color, that
No, we're not
contradicts
denying anybody
what's in here.
designing their
That's
dream
my
house.
point.
It's just that the dream house may have issues or items or
I totally agree with that part.
that
But
create.
this ordinance doesn't state that, and
I'll let Brian explain what he's written.
That's why I think we need to
Kind of
have a
water
little
down.
time and work
You
with the
you
ordinance.
can't get, you have to have some formality.
Yeah.
It's got to be a process, because you can't enforce it without that. And the enforcement is not only the P and Z, it's the staff, the building department, everybody else, so.
Well, what changes do you want to make?
I gave two to Brian already. I just want everyone to be aware that what you're doing is, Mark describes it, what his intent is, but the ordinance, as Brian will tell you, actually gives P and Z the authority to tell you.
To what?
you can do, to tell you
No,
color.
no, to
No.
comment.
It's right in there.
Well, it says basically, colors shall be harmonious and representative of the architectural style of the building and the character of the neighborhood.
Right.
Shall. So, again, that's another one of those,
No, that's flat
as
out.
a review, you can, to say that the building zoning is gonna say, okay, the color is wrong, and you're gonna change it, it is almost.
Mark assures us he's not gonna do that.
No,
but
let
Mark-
me explain, because I sit on both sides of this fence here. Every board should look at what the applicant submits, and not what they would like to see, and critique it and see if it's appropriate. That's where I think, Brian has got to be the referee in cases like this. People say, well, I like to have a bigger window, you should have a bigger window. That's redesigning. That's not what it's intended for. You look at what is presented, you look at it and make judgment, is this harmonious with what the intent? And the style is not dictated. You're free to do whatever style you wish, but is it appropriate, what you're selecting roof material for that style? You go and put a purple roof or a blue roof on a Mediterranean house, you're gonna say, wait a minute, something's not correct here. And that does happen, by the way.
Now, also remember, when this board does convene, it convenes with the town manager, the town attorney, and the building official.
Right.
So it's not just the planning and zoning who is going through the thing, that they're asking.
I just have two fixes.
Go ahead.
Could you share those? Sorry.
Yeah, I've talked to you about this, as a matter of fact. Colors, it's very simple. Right now, it says colors shall be harmonious and representative of the architectural style of the building and the character of the neighborhood. That troubles me. And generally within the character of the neighborhood. See, this is more like with what you're saying.
Yeah, I think.
It just loosens it a bit.
Yeah, the word shall is a little harsh. That's a very, I think it can be, there can be flexibility in that.
I mean, I could say colors should be harmonious. I mean, if that.
May.
Yeah. It's,
But I think the color thing for the style of architecture is that you don't use.
Wacky. I know exactly what you mean.
Correct.
It's just the
Candy
second thing was, which I also talked to you about, buildings shall be consistent with the established neighborhood character. To me, that means if the neighborhood's Bermudas, you can't build a contemporary or modern. Mark says, no, that's totally incorrect, so we just need to add in, buildings shall be consistent with established neighborhood character and within acknowledged architectural styles, if that is the right language.
Yeah,
How about
that's
just buildings from shall to should? Buildings
Yeah.
should be consistent with the establishment.
Yeah, I mean, I think shall is incorrect.
Yeah.
We didn't pick that up, but
You get
now
notice,
that's
Brian?
legal.
Just saying.
They
Legal.
want to change that to 300 feet, not 250, so it's uniform with
I
the
will.
variance request.
Yeah, are you reducing that?
Mark, why?
Yeah.
No, we're going to
You wanna
increase
go-
it 300.
Oh, okay.
You took it from 300 to 250. Maybe you should explain why
Well,
you did
250 is common for site plan review. When it comes to variances or any other nonconformities requests, then you usually go a little. In fact, some municipalities are only 20, it's the adjacent lots.
And my point, and I had talked to Brian about this, if you change that from 300 to 250, there's a number of other ordinances that you need to go back and
Well,
change.
not really. Again, variances are more impacting than just a site plan review. Site plan reviews conforming to the zoning criteria, and
It's in the construction handbook, it's so on and so
it's a
forth.
buildable.
It's easier to remember one number than two.
Yeah.
Okay.
How's that?
Right now, I'll take it.
Yeah, really.
275? How's that?
Yeah.
No,
Is there any other changes?
No,
No.
I mean, other than the 300, I was not in favor of going to the 250 from the get-go, so
We're just bringing in more people into the mix, so.
more the merrier.
I will also, there's also a number of places in Section 3 of the ordinance that talks under Town Planning and Zoning Commission review of site plans where I say shall, and I get the impression that the commission would like me to change that to should, if I'm not mistaken.
No, I think you got that one. No, I think you're on the money with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if that's kind of the consensus, and I think that's kind of the consensus of the Planning and Zoning Commission
Correct.
as well, that that's kind of what they were, they're looking for something that gives, I don't want to say teeth, but at least if they have to hang their hat on something, that we have something here that they can hang their hat on to say, here's why you need to change something.
All right.
And it's going to take time to really tweak everything out, but I think we got to start somewhere. That's our whole request to you as a commission, is to at least note or recognize that there could be issues coming down the pike, and we need to have some format by which to, control some of that. And control may be the wrong word for Steve, but.
Thanks, Mark.
All right. So how do we do this?
You just gonna make a motion for to accept the ordinance, right, with
Uh,
changes?
Subject to the
Subject to the changes.
you have presented at the meeting. Yes.
Make a motion to approve the first reading of ordinance number 619, an ordinance of the Town of Ocean Ridge on site plan review procedures.
Subject to the recommended changes that you have given to the city attorney.
From the Town Commission this evening.
I second it.
Public comment? Wait, how'd you time it that good?
I've been sitting outside. I've been listening to y'all. At least I sit on the couch. Ken Khalil, 86 Avon Drive South. Thank you. Control is elusive, very elusive. And like Mark, who has appeared before many architectural review boards, so have I. And I've fought many architectural review boards, and the like. And it's very difficult. And it's very difficult for a town like this because we're not a Gulfstream. We're not a Palm Beach, where Gulfstream, the styles are all very similar. They live in their little white Bermuda-style house and everything else. We don't. If you go down any particular neighborhood in town, you tell me what the character is. You tell me what the style is. Give me the indication of how I can plan my home, unless you're leaving it up to the subjective intent of a review board. And that makes it very difficult. While I trust Mark implicitly that he would give good advice, Mark is not going to be on that board at all times. And you're going to be left with 5 people or so that are going to be making a decision based upon their own personal judgments. And I don't care what Brian says, he's going to sit back on the side and he cannot give his viewpoint as to whether or not something is going to meet some sort of elusive standard. So I think before you pass something like that, you better zone in on what standards that you're going to defend in court. because that's what's going to happen. You better be able to defend it. So if you're the should or shall, that's all elusive. What does that mean? So somebody can come in and give this dog and pony show, tell them what they want to do or whatever, and you have a should standard. How is that going to be defended? How are you going to deal with that? Okay, they deny it. They then go to the commission, right? So now we're wasting two methods. And then we go further. Now, I understand why these things are being brought up. All I'm saying is you better pay attention to the standard that you're trying to create and justify it. Create what you're trying to do and force that hard decision. What is the standard that you want? What are you looking to accomplish? If you're looking for a moral conviction, then say that, because that's all this is. You're trying to create a social norm or a more as to what people should be doing. But over time, architecture changes. So what's right and what's wrong? I don't know. In 10 years from now, I guarantee architecture is going to, and Mark can't tell me that his styles haven't changed over a period of time, because naturally they do. At one point in time, Tuscany was the big thing. Bermuda was the big thing. You know, Key West Cottage was a big thing. What is the standard we're trying to do? That's all I ask. Tell us what you're trying to accomplish, and then be able to defend it in the event it's challenged. That's the trick. Thank you.
I have a question for you. You said you've been on one side, probably both sides, of defending these things and prosecuting these things. Mark told us that many of the communities, and Barrier Island communities, all have some sort of architectural review board. How do they set the standard that passes judicial muster?
A lot of them
that
don't.
Well, that's my question.
A lot of them can't, right? So you're creating a social moray. Like, I'll give them an Alapan, for example, right?
So if they,
It's very difficult to enforce a subjective standard. Ask Brian. Am I right, Brian?
No, that is true. I
Okay.
mean, there's.
So how do you, so let's not do lip service. Let's try to, if we're going to do this, hone in on what you're trying to achieve, and then, and then find what standards are manageable. What standards what can we do that gives it some teeth, and just don't make this some sort of lip service if that's what you're trying to achieve.
so essentially what
Because
you're,
we're just creating lawsuits for the town.
yeah, essentially what you're saying is we pass this and we're passing something that just invites us to be sued if we turn somebody down.
Oh, most definitely. Tell me,
Well, if you
defend
turn somebody
it.
down twice, but I agree with what you're saying and with most of it, but I still think needs to be a mechanism in this town that the people who work in this town, the people who live in this town have no idea what's being built here whatsoever. Not at all, because those people who work in the town don't live in the town. So there's got to be a mechanism that the people who live in this town find out what's going on, what's being built. So this is a way to get to that point. Yes, and there is risks, like in any other endeavor when it comes down to this government thing. There's risk, and there's risk to the town. But isn't it not right that the town residents, if I'm next door neighbor is building a house that's completely, amazingly way out of the character, would that not be something that the town, as the residents themselves, could not find out and say, hey, I have a question about it. Can I put any input into it? And this is the only mechanism I can see that can do that, because the town doesn't notify residents when somebody's building a house next door, or they're tearing it down, or what's going there.
Therein lies the challenge. Therein lies the challenge. There's a difference between notification and dictation, right? And there's a huge difference between the two. And so if that's what you're trying to achieve, then do that. Do it. But, it all works well until you're the guy that's going before the board. I have seen this time and time again with I've represented people that sat on these architectural review boards, but then had to go before them. And all of a sudden the tone changes, right? All of a sudden when they're under the examination, people have a different attitude. So I would be cautious. I'm not saying you shouldn't do it necessarily, But think about what you're doing and think how that standard would apply in these instances. Now, you're talking about a completely different thing, Mayor. You're talking about notification. Okay, so they're notified. Now what? Now what? I remember when the house on Harbor Drive North, when the house on Harbor, sit down. When the house on Harbor Drive North was built. And I think some of you remember that, right? When the house on Harbor Drive with the square shape and the whole thing and it all, God, they're a dime a dozen in Delray now, and they're like that up here. But at the time, that style was uncharacteristic. People went crazy. Now it seems to be the style that people want. So it's kind of funny how tastes change over time. So while I think it's a good intention, my experience has been, and it's opposite, not opposite, but Mark has a very similar experience. He had to change, I'm sure he's had to change his style going before whatever board they're trying to do. But Gulfstream is a heck of a lot easier to match their style and characteristics of that town for the 180 or 400 homes or whatever they have compared to our town. And that's what we have to examine.
And I
How does
agree.
that work?
And I agree, but what you said earlier went right to my point, that there's going to be developers that are coming in here, and we're not going to know because it's going to go to the town employees. They're going to buy out, they're going to do spec homes, they're going to be buying out spec homes, they're going to be building up whatever they can get on that piece of property under our floor area ratio. And it can be anything they want at this point. And the town themselves we do not know. I mean, how do you, because Delray is,
Okay, once you do know, the issue is
once
once you do know, what can you do about it? So
Just
what
the
is
fact-
the standard that you're trying to achieve if you're trying, instead of creating chaos for somebody that wants to build a house that is Frank Lloyd Wright type, right? What, that is not the character of the community, that 5 people think is not within the character. Is there something, and maybe Mark can do that, maybe the P&Z, give them the hard job of going back, and if you're trying to create a set, I remember when we did the P&Z code to begin with, when we revamped it, and Digby was very instrumental in that code. And we took the time and gave examples of what would be, conducive, if you will, to massing. And we had those examples. I think they're still laid out in the code. Maybe that's something that we should do. Give the people some sort of guideline as opposed to this elusive control. Because I just think we're making a mistake from that aspect. Think about what you're trying to achieve and how are you going to achieve it and how are you going to defend it. Thank you.
Thanks.
If I could just, not rebuttal, but what Ken said is true. I mean, there is challengeable potential here. But I think, like Gulfstream, for example, mandates through their manual what you can and can't do. It's actually, I think it's preferred, discouraged, and prohibited. That's where you get the challenges, because when you get an expensive piece of property and you tell a person you cannot develop, and Ken's right, the styles vary, and you can't build a Mediterranean house in a Bermuda style. That's when the challenge. I don't think we're going to get to that level. I think we just want to bring people to the table, have an open discussion, and say, look, there may be concern here that your style is. I think he's also right. We have a fabric of this town that's multiple style. There's no one neighborhood that's the same, and that's the charm of the town. But, I think if we mandate too much and are too rigid, that's when you get the challenges. And that's when on both sides of the dais, have issues, is because you can't tell me I got to have a white roof. You might as well move out to a Western community and live in gated community. But that's not the intent. But he's right. I think there's got to be a happy medium here between what basic criteria we're looking for, and over time we'll be able to readdress and adjust accordingly to the response we get, and push back, or whatever you want to call it. But I fear what he's saying is when you have such a rigid guideline, Palm Beach is the same, the two examples he stated. Manalapan's different. Manalapan, you can basically build anything. I mean, it's open season. But where you have too many restrictions, that's when it becomes challengeable from a legal standpoint, because dirt is not getting cheaper, and people want the freedom to build their dream house. But I think what we're trying to get here is just to have a review situation where their dream house may just be so incongruous with what's in the neighborhood or the town that the bells go off, notification to the adjacent properties and say, hey, can we revisit certain aspects of this? Or, we suggest that you look at an alternative style that's more appropriate. And that's the kind of dialogue we need to encourage. But I can't speak to the legal aspects of what Ken is saying, because he's right. I mean, everything's challengeable. So I don't think, it's something we should be conscious of, but I think we've got to have a starting point. And over time, it will hopefully mesh into something that is going to be a useful tool to preserve the charm here.
Thanks, Mark.
Okay. I'm gone.
Ken, I have a question for you based on your experience. When you're representing the builder or owner in these presentations and you get to a situation where you get denied your plan, and you say, we can sue, we'll win, blah, blah, blah. It seems to me, though, that's the point where you sit down and you say, how much will it cost me to sue? How long will it take me to build? Is it worth the fight compared to what changes they want? So I guess my question is,
Okay,
you do
I
that
can answer that.
analysis?
I can answer that real easily, because
You understand what I'm getting to? Because-
you do that analysis. But what I have found is when you're at a level of expense for a house in the millions of dollars, right? The price for that stuff tends to diminish, right? So I'll give the classic example is the old Boyle lawsuit in Gulfstream, right? That's the classic example here. Who would have thought that somebody would go to that extreme? Because it all started out as an architectural review situation.
Yeah.
That's how that whole case started out.
Didn't you used to live in Ocean Ridge, too?
Huh? No,
No,
well,
that's
that's
O'Hare.
O'Hare.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean, now it got crazy and it got out of hand, and I think everyone lost sight of what the basis was, maybe. But when you don't know what you're going to get. You don't know who that client is, and you don't know who is willing to challenge it. I have clients that are willing to go, some of them are willing to go to the mat. I can tell you that. That just to show, because they don't like all of you sitting up there, you don't like somebody telling you what to do with your property, especially when you're going to pay $5 million, $2 million, $6 million, $10 million. As the price goes up, the more you have the feeling that you have the entitlement to build what you want to build. That's the basic tenet of a property right, right? So from that standpoint, that's where the challenge is. And, it's just a difficult challenge. I understand, think about what was said, that you bring in maybe you shouldn't build this like this and things like that. So it's kind of a moral review. As long as we all understand that it's a moral review, that it really can't be denied, because how are you going to deny it? Based upon what subjective criteria can you deny it? I mean, that's fool's gold. That's just silly.
And
So
then
as
what's
long
the
as we
point
have
of
an
the ordinance then?
understanding that what you're doing is starting a review panel to test the social mores or norms of the architect that's coming up. As long as you understand that, then so be it. That's how it should be laid out, that this is going to be a suggestive review board, because that's all it is a suggestive review, and, encourage something. But my fear is not the Mark Marshes of the world. In fact, like I said before, I have abundance of faith. But when you get 5 people up there that all of a sudden decide that they want the yellow house with the white roof, and the coconut palm that's not there, but there. I've seen this. So that's just not a good scenario. And it makes for And the larger the town, the more difficult that type of scenario is. So again, I think the devil is in the details, right? So if you're going to create a standard of review, focus in on what that standard's going to be so that everyone has a better understanding of what you're looking for, as opposed to this ambiguity of whoever's sitting up there determines what the character is going to be. That's a difficult task.
All right. So, any other public comment? We're losing people. All right, so back to the commission. Let's see,
Let me, Brian, when Ken mentioned the diagrams that were in our, do you know what he's talking about?
No, there's diagrams in your code that talk about massing and setbacks and things, yes.
Is there any way you could add some of those guidelines to what you're doing here, so we have more guidance for people to follow what we're trying to accomplish?
such as?
I don't know.
And
Well, I mean,
that's
the rub, you know?
Right. No, that's part of the issue of, you can either, I guess, you know, in front of the P and Z board, their direction was, no, let's be more general than, you know, we don't want to dictate. You know, I've seen codes where, okay, these are the 4 colors, or you have to come in, you have to pick a color from the town's approved color palette, and this is what you can use.
Yeah, we're not looking
And I mean,
at-
there's all sorts of different things that, if you want to get into the details of something like that, I certainly don't disagree with what Mr. Khalil is saying. However, you know, if you're trying, you know, I've seen examples of something like that. Normally, it's either in very exclusive communities or in bigger cities where you have a whole planning department that looks at plans and says, okay, there's a whole list of things that you have to comply with, and you've done all of those things. I'm not sure that that is something that would really, you know, work that well here. And so in looking at this, and I certainly don't disagree with him where it's kind of like, okay, look, you know, the standards that we have here are very open to interpretation. You know, without a doubt it is. Of course, I don't know if I've ever really seen a site plan review board criteria. I mean, to a certain extent, all of those boards have criteria that it's all subjective. And that's the key to it also, is that, you know, while the current members on that board are very well, and they you know, they're very well intentioned, and it's kind of like, no, this is the way it's going to do, you know, this is the way we're going to treat things, those things change. And that's why I provided for the appeal process up to the commission, where if, you know, I can just say in other, you know, well, you know, primarily in Delray Beach where that's happened in the past, if the SPRAD board there has done something where it's, you know, staff feels like, well, that really wasn't such a great idea, you know, let's appeal it up to the commission, because they need to take a look at it, and then you talk to the commissioners and you say, okay, if we don't make a change here or something, we're opening ourselves up for, you know, a possible lawsuit. Of course, in most cases, the lawsuit it's a writ of cert, where the relief that they get is the court just tells the commission no, approve the plans, or no, you know, review the plans in accordance with your code. So it's not so much damages, but it is a process, and it takes time, and there's legal bills involved. So, you know, that's certainly something that we always try to steer away from.
Okay, so there is a motion and a second, and we've had discussion. Do you want to go put it for a vote?
I'm through asking questions.
You've done answering questions?
I'm done asking questions.
Any more changes? All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
A reluctant aye.
Reluctant aye.
It's guidelines.
Okay, so motion carries.
For the first time anyways.
All right. Whew. Second reading of adoption of ordinances. Tracy, you want to do 21?
Ordinance number 620, an ordinance of the Town of Ocean Ridge, Florida, amending its code of ordinances by amending Chapter 64 zoning, Article 3 supplemental regulations by creating Section 64-6 60, decks, patios, steps, stoops, and terraces, unenclosed and uncovered, to provide for setbacks, providing for codification, repeal of conflicting ordinances, severability, and an effective date.
All right. Somebody want to make motions, a second reading of this?
So moved.
Okay. Is there a second?
Seconded.
Motion is second. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by
Well,
saying aye.
it is a public
Oh,
hearing,
that's right,
so,
public hearing.
yes.
Public
we-
comment?
Oh,
Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Number 22, Tracy.
Ordinance number 621, an ordinance of the Town of Ocean Ridge, Florida, amending its Code of Ordinances by amending Chapter 64 zoning, Article 3 supplemental regulations, Section 64-49, temporary structures, to clarify the regulations regarding temporary structures. Chapter 67, buildings and building regulations, Article 1 in general, to provide for and clarify existing regulations governing construction sites, providing for codification, repeal of conflicting ordinances, severability, and an effective date.
All righty. Somebody make a motion?
Well, if I can, before you do that, I would just like to point out a couple of minor little changes that I would like for you to include in your approval of that.
Okay.
On the, let's see, 67, section 67-1, under paragraph J, where it talks about any pool under construction shall be kept clean of any debris until such time as the pool is properly filtered, and I would like to add, and must be fenced. So I would like to make that change, and also the other change, let me see. That may have been the only change that I need to point out on this. The other changes, there were some other minor changes that I had made on this that I had sent to you all in a red line format, and this incorporates those changes.
The main change there was the parking.
Yes, yes, it was.
Okay. Hearing the changes, anyone care to make a motion?
I move that we adopt ordinance number, was it 621? As set forth in addendum item number 22 and as amended by the statements set forth by the town attorney.
All right. Second. Motion is second. Any other discussion? Public comment? All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. 22A.
Okay, this particular item, basically, there are a couple of changes that I need to point out to you. On the first sheet, what we would also like to add, where it talks about the very front part of the construction site management handbook, we would like to have a line in there for like the permit number, to have that. Also under section 4, trailers and dumpsters, portable toilets, where if you go down to the second sentence or of the first paragraph where it starts out, prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy, and then I would also like to add /completion, because there is, according to the building official, there's also, I guess he also issues a certificate of completion on certain things when the structure is already occupied. I would like to add that, and then I would also, under that same paragraph number 4, under portable toilets, add a subparagraph or a section 3, which says, this talks about the portable toilets, that they shall be screened from the public. On number 8, parking, alternate parking sites, where it talks about alternate parking sites may be approved by the building official and/or police chief, providing the following requirements are met. Under alternate parking sites, under number 9 of that, the building official had asked me to scratch out or temporary certificate of occupancy, because he, according to him, he doesn't issue those, so there's no need to have that. And we just, and also on the end of certificate of occupancy /completion, to incorporate the completion in there and make that same change under parking in the public right-of-way as well in the last sentence of that one, where it talks about no certificate of occupancy, and also have to take out temporary certificate of occupancy, but just have completion in there. And those are the changes to that. Yes, sir.
In number 6, erosion and stormwater control, you reduce that back to the 250, and if we're going to leave that
That needs to be
at
300.
300.
Okay, and then I would also, if the commission is okay, it's, from what I've heard from town staff, is that there are certain things in here on the capitalization of certain letters, so, or words, that if you would also give us the authority to make those more or less Scrivener error changes as well. But that just talks about certain capitalization of a handbook or stop work orders and those type of things, to be consistent with the other verbiage in the handbook.
I move that we adopt our resolution number 2017-10 as set forth on agenda item number 22A, and as per the changes described by the town attorney. Can I direct you to go through that and make sure everything that references 250 is changed to 300?
Yes, you can.
Yeah, why don't you go through and make sure everything that references 250 feet is changed to 300?
Is that it?
That's it.
Is there a second?
Second.
Public comment.
Oh, God.
Ken Khalil, 86 Island Drive, South. I don't know if it's in there, but since we're trying to be like Palm Beach and Gulfstream and all the other towns, which is a good thing in many respects, can we also control the building on Saturdays? The amount of construction that does and limit, and I think that's, I don't know if it's part of the construction manual or if it's part of the zoning. I think it's part of the zoning code right now.
Yeah.
But I think we ought to examine, allowing construction at all on a Saturday. I'm getting tired of hearing the pounding of the roofs and everything going on. So since we're trying to control things, I think we ought to control our peace and serenity at the same time. So, I think that bothers me more than what my neighbor is going to build on his property, quite frankly.
Should we put something on the agenda for next meeting to deal with this?
Yeah, the discussion, why not?
Because, I mean, it's a Saturday noise issue, it's not just construction.
Yeah, most towns don't allow it. And I'll go one step further, a lot of towns don't allow building during the season. So, that might be an extreme, but at least we can have some variance there and say maybe, unless it's an emergency, I'm all for, handling whatever emergency situations that, life, safety, health issues, but, some limitations on the timeframes and things like that. So that would be helpful.
Can we add that to the workshop with the P&Z in June?
Perfect.
Why don't we direct staff to,
We got to vote on that. Oh.
All right. I really was going to try and not say anything tonight. Jerry Lauer, 2 Harbor Drive North. As long as you're on construction management. I've just, in the last few months, become very aware of a form of construction debris that I had never thought about before, which is being perpetually downwind from the dust that a construction site creates. It's not obvious. It affects the house next door, and it's one that could potentially be addressed in your provisions. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Betty, nothing? Okay. All right. At the commission, any other discussion? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Oh,
I have a discussion on the traffic calming, and I don't know if the other commissioners have seen the concept of perhaps doing a traffic circle at the end of Beachway and Old Ocean.
well,
And
let's
I don't know
get,
where that needs to be
we got to
discussed.
finish this vote, and then we'll, and we, if you want to, when did you bring that up earlier?
Well,
Here, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries. The traffic calming circles?
Stole my rubber band there, pal.
You want to do that, are we bringing up the paving again next meeting? Yeah.
So
We can bring it up then.
we can put that on.
that as one of the.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just didn't know how many of you all had seen that, and we needed to discuss it.
I mean, a big red donut? Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody, for coming.